So this is an apocalypse city, huh? Not bad. The ruined view really sells it. Marcus muttered as he opened his eyes on top of a tall building, right where the portal had dropped him. He walked straight to the edge, glanced down once, and stepped off without hesitation. As he fell, the wind element gathered under his feet, shifting and twisting at his will. His descent slowed, and he landed lightly on the ground, as if he'd just hopped off a small ledge. He started wandering through the streets. Some buildings were sliced clean in half. Others were nothing but collapsed rubble. A few still stood, but their windows were shattered and walls cracked. Marcus looked around with open curiosity, taking in the scenery like a tourist on vacation. But despite his relaxed expression, he never lowered his guard. In a place like this, one mistake meant death. A distant noise caught his attention. He shifted direction, running toward the sound. His feet brushed walls and ledges as he bounded between two buildings, movements so smooth and effortless that any professional tracer would cough blood in shame. Reaching the rooftop, he crouched and looked down. Below, thousands of zombies were clustered together, packed tightly like an army waiting for a command. Marcus smiled. Perfect audience. Knowing how sensitive zombies were to sound, he decided to give them an entrance they wouldn't forget. He leaped from the roof and crashed into the ground like a falling boulder, the impact loud enough to echo through the streets. Every zombie head snapped in his direction. They stared at him like hungry beasts that had just spotted fresh meat. With groans and staggered steps, they started moving toward him, a tide of rotting bodies eager to tear him apart. Marcus didn't bother to wait for them. He went to them instead. Since there was nothing above A rank here, he didn't even think about drawing the sword floating behind him. He took a single step, and his body blurred. He appeared beside the first zombie and casually drove his fist through its skull. Before the corpse even hit the ground, Marcus had already moved on. To anyone watching, he would look less like a swordsman and more like a martial arts monster. He fought with everything: fingers, elbows, wrists, fists, palms, knees, heels, even his toes. Every part of his body was a precise weapon, his control so meticulous that each strike was clean, efficient, and lethal. Where he'd been, only an afterimage remained. Even the A-rank zombies couldn't track his movements. To them, he was just a flicker of motion, followed by instant death. Marcus moved through the horde, harvesting lives, well, unlives, as the sound of exploding heads echoed through the ruined streets. Not a drop of blood touched him. Any blood that got close was blocked and suspended by a thin wind barrier that formed instantly wherever it was about to land on him. 5 minutes later, he came to a stop. The area was quiet. He stood amidst a sea of corpses, not even breathing heavily. No sweat, no exhaustion. This isn't even a warm-up, he said lightly, smiling to himself. At least it wasn't another boring spar. He raised his hand, and the wind answered. The corpses were swept toward him and vanished into a spatial ring one after another. With this, my point should be decent for the start. I'd better keep this pace, Marcus said, giving the field one last glance before vanishing from sight. He ran through the empty streets, legs moving effortlessly. Suddenly, an arrow shot toward him from a long distance, flying straight for his head with frightening accuracy. Marcus saw it and simply stopped. The sword that had been floating behind him since he entered the secret realm vibrated once and flew forward on its own, smashing the arrow to pieces midair. Thanks, Marcus said. The sword hummed softly in response. This blade was different. It had been born from his own physique, refined and tied to his very soul. When he'd reached S rank, his body had formed the sword, and with it came a bond. A sentient sword that would grow with its wielder. Since he possessed the celestial sword physique and the sword had emerged from it, he'd named it simply Celestine. A simple name for a sword capable of touching barriers that many divine weapons could only dream of. Marcus scanned the surroundings and noticed something different this time. Zombies stood on rooftops and ledges, surrounding him from all directions, watching him with strangely stern expressions. His gaze locked onto one particular figure who clearly stood out from the rest. That zombie held a sword in its left hand, its aura heavy and oppressive. They stared at each other for a minute. Then, as if following a signal, all the surrounding zombies raised their bows and loosed a rain of arrows. Marcus didn't move. Neither did Celestine. A wind barrier flared around him, and the arrows shattered harmlessly the moment they touched it. Marcus vanished from their sight. By the time the zombies realized he had moved, one of them had already died, its body falling limply from its perch. He tore through them without even considering drawing Celestine. To him, these archers were nothing but trash mobs, completely unworthy of his partner. When he was done, Marcus sat casually on one of the corpses, looking at the leader with a smirk. "Why don't you join us, human?" the leader said, voice oddly smooth for a zombie. "You know you can't win against me. The zombie race will bring a new dawn to this ruined world and save it. Stand with us, and you will reach heights you've never imagined." The way he said it made it sound like a practice speech, something he'd repeated countless times. Marcus raised a brow. He had never once heard of a zombie race, holding territory or being counted among the recognized races. He didn't even know if they were filed under minor races or just treated as monsters. Yet here one stood, calmly trying to recruit him. "I just wiped out your squad," Marcus replied, amused. "If you promised them the same new dawn and they still died like trash, doesn't that make your little pitch sound like a scam? You sound just like those forsaken cult idiots." "Do not compare us zombies to those worms," the leader snapped. "We are a higher life form. We broke free from human limitations and evolved beyond them. Human, I'm giving you a chance to stand at the peak with me." Its tone was almost like a devil whispering temptations. Zombies had once been human, at least the first generation. An unknown virus had spread, turning some into mindless corpses and others into something else entirely. Intelligent, self-aware beings with memories intact. That was how a new race was born. Naturally, humanity hadn't accepted that quietly. They'd acted quickly and wiped out most of the infected. But the intelligent zombies had developed their own potion, allowing humans to willingly join them and become one of their kind. Their numbers were growing, but still within what the powers of the world considered acceptable. If they ever crossed that line, they'd be erased. Marcus looked at the leader, unfazed. "I'll accept on one condition," he said, sliding off the corpse and landing lightly on the ground. "And that is," the zombie asked, smiling faintly, "defeat me in battle." Celestine began to hum with anticipation. Marcus drew his partner slowly, feeling the blade's eagerness echo his own. This would be the first time he truly unsheathed the sword in this realm. The zombie's aura surged, revealing itself fully as SS rank pressure flooded the area. Marcus, meanwhile, still suppressed his power, maintaining the appearance of an F rank. His aura was calm, but in the next instant, it was ready to explode. As if they'd agreed without words, both moved at the same time. Two swords swung. Steel and energy collided. The impact ripped through the ruined city, unleashing a devastating shockwave. Ross snapped into a defensive stance the instant he opened his eyes. Unknown sky, unknown air, unknown ground, graveyard. Stone slabs stretched out in every direction, cracked and tilted at odd angles. There wasn't a single sign of life, just silence and the faint chill of death clinging to the place. He moved slowly, every sense sharpened. Anything could come out of the ground here. His hand stayed wrapped around the hilt of the saber at his waist, thumb already resting on the guard, ready to draw in an instant. Strike first, ask questions later, he decided. At least until he understood where he was and what this sector wanted from him. He kept walking. Nothing happened. No monsters. No ambush. No undead hand grabbing his leg. Just gravestones and stillness. Ross walked up to one slab and casually kicked it. It shattered to pieces. Still nothing. Time crawled past. With no reaction at all from the environment, his nerves unconsciously loosened, guard dropping just a little. Two skeletal hands shot out of the ground and clamped around his ankles, yanking. Lightning exploded across his body as Ross reacted instantly. He coated himself in crackling electricity and blurred out of their grip, reappearing a few steps away as the earth trembled. The ground around him broke apart as more bone hands clawed their way out, pulling full skeletons from the soil. They rose one after another until the graveyard was full of rattling forms, each with a faint pale flame flickering in its empty eye sockets. From somewhere in the distance, Ross heard the sound of hooves. He turned. A rider approached, a figure clad in pitch-black armor, flames leaking from the cracks of its helmet. A sword hung at its waist, and a tattered cape flowed behind it as it rode a dark warhorse. Behind it came another presence. A robed figure sat on a floating throne of bones that drifted forward on its own power, a scythe resting lazily across its lap. The mounted knight dismounted, walked to the throne, and dropped to one knee, driving its sword into the ground in a gesture of fealty. Ross watched them enter like it was some kind of staged ceremony. A death knight and a lich. "Let the game begin," the lich said in a bored tone. The moment the words left its mouth, the skeletal soldiers lunged from all directions. Ross narrowed his eyes, lifted both arms to his sides, and let thick lightning coat his hands. He punched out. Boom! Crackle! Bolts of lightning roared through the graveyard, vaporizing skeletons and obliterating gravestones before they even got close. In moments, everything was char-black. He wasn't stupid. With that kind of dramatic entrance, there was no way this was the first time these undead had done this. The skeletons were just disposable pawns. A warm-up fight meant to entertain the lich and slowly drain his stamina and mana. So Ross chose not to play along. Flatten everything. Leave nothing. No performance today. He dashed through the smoke and finished off any remaining skeletons, collecting their skulls as he moved. Then he turned toward the lich. "If you want a show or a concert, you should pay for it," Ross said dryly, tossing a skull up and catching it. If the lich had a face, it would have looked stunned. Most students either got overwhelmed, burned through their stamina and mana fighting the skeletons, then bailed out using their life balls. Even those who managed to survive the minions just ended up exhausted and ran when they realized they couldn't beat the lich. The lich was used to watching weak struggles and boring retreats. Even when it could have finished them off before they teleported, the life ball always dragged them out anyway. This was the first time someone had erased its pawns so casually and then mocked it. "Death Knight, you take this one," the lich said, eye flames brightening with interest. For the first time in a long while, it was actually curious. The Death Knight stepped forward with heavy, deliberate steps, a suffocating aura wafting from its armor. Intimidating, yes. But at the end of the day, it was still just an A-rank monster. Ross had wanted to cross blades with it properly, but the thought of wasting time while everyone else racked up points made him change his mind. He vanished. By the time the Death Knight reacted, Ross was already in front of it, a hand resting lightly on its shoulder as lightning surged through its entire body. The pitch-black armor glowed blinding white for a few seconds. When the light died, there was nothing left. No armor, no bones. Just a single skull rolling on the ground, still radiating a faint aura. Ross picked it up and set it aside for points. Then he looked at the lich. "You might as well make your move," he said, voice calm. "This little routine might work on others, but not on me. I'm in a hurry. There are only 9 spots." He didn't wait for a reply. He blurred and reappeared in front of the throne, fist already flying toward the lich's skull. The lich blocked with the handle of its scythe, deflecting the blow with ease. It stared at Ross, flames flaring in its eye sockets. "Don't compare me to those necromancers who crumble without their minions," it said coldly. "There are stains on my name, human." The scythe twisted in its grip in the same breath, the crescent blades swinging to reap Ross's head. Ross ducked and slid back several meters, boots skidding across broken stone. The lich moved. It shot forward from its throne with such speed that the bone seat shattered behind it. It slashed in a sweeping arc, darkness clinging to the blade like liquid night. Ross snorted, drew his saber, and wrapped it in lightning. Their weapons collided. Boom! Darkness and lightning tore through the sector, gouging the earth and carving deep scars into the ground. Each clash sent shockwaves through the graveyard. They danced across the broken terrain, trading blows and counterblows. Every step they took left craters and cracked behind. The flames in the lich's eyes burned brighter with every exchange. It had been trapped in this sector for far too long. Liches could theoretically live forever as long as their souls were safe, immortality being their ultimate obsession. But this particular lich had already explored every corner of its graveyard prison. The only entertainment it had were the occasional students who wandered in and ran away. Most of them weren't worth remembering. In this secret realm, each sector was isolated and locked. Every monster was bound to its own area, unable to leave no matter how strong it became. The S-rank beings had long since grown bored. Some slept, some wandered aimlessly, so just waited. If the sector barriers didn't exist, this realm would have already turned into a battlefield of clashing domains, with demons spreading corruption everywhere. But for now, they were all trapped. That was why this fight thrilled the lich so much. Ha 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 ha. Human, give me more. More. This will be the battle of my life, the lich roared, drunk on combat. It abruptly changed stance, lifting its scythe high. Mana surged toward it in a tidal wave, merging with dense darkness around the blade. Death technique, scythe of hell. Ross adjusted his stance as well. He lowered his saber to his waist, lightning crawling over the blade, gathering and compressing until the air around it shook. Ross technique, lightning saber series, fallen dawn. They moved in perfect sync. The lich brought its scythe down in a world-cleaving swing. Ross drew his saber upward to meet it. Boom, crackle, BRZZ, hiss. The explosion that followed tore through the entire graveyard. Darkness and lightning rampaged wildly, annihilating everything in their path. Craters opened everywhere, the ground collapsing into massive sinkholes. The entire sector shuddered. A sinkhole yawned beneath both Ross and the lich, but neither moved. They used their elements to anchor themselves midair, refusing to give an inch. Whoever moved first would lose. Ross's grin widened. He prepared another technique, eager to see how far this lich could go. The fact it could fight at near SS rank intensity made him genuinely impressed. He wanted to respond with his own trump card and see what the lich would throw back at him. They were both enjoying the fight, far too much to care about the consequences. Then, mid-clash, the flames in the lich's eye sockets suddenly went out. Its body froze. The next moment, it collapsed into a heap of bones with a hollow clatter. Ross stood there, saber still glowing, stunned. He waited. No movement. No hidden technique. No sudden resurrection. Is this a trick? He wondered. He had no way of knowing the truth. Somewhere in this graveyard, the lich's soul had been sealed inside a phylactery. Their last clash hadn't just obliterated the environment. It had also destroyed the phylactery along with everything else. With its soul snuffed out, the lich died instantly. When nothing happened after a while, Ross sighed, sheathed his saber, and walked over. He gathered the lich's bones for points, stored them, and turned away. Time was ticking. There were still more sectors and more targets waiting.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Arnold walked with confidence as he appeared in what seems to be an endless plain of rice field, as what he saw looked like rice plants that reached all the way up to his knees. Everywhere was glowing green, as anything could be under those plants, but Arnold walked unbothered and confident in his own strength. The wind in the field blew all plants, further creating sounds to mask any movement sound that may arise from anywhere. Aren't monsters these days too focused on sneak attacks? Or have they become afraid, said Arnold as he walked across the field. Have they become lazy or what? They should attack already. Should I just destroy everything here? I'm sure they would come out eventually when that happens, Arnold said with a smile. Then he raised his spear about to send an attack across the field, so these monsters would stop hiding or planning sneak attacks. As he was about to attack, his posture abruptly shifted as he changed forms from attack to a defensive stance. As soon he blocked with his spear, he heard a sound of two metals clashing. The weight on his spear was suddenly lifted and disappeared without a trace, like it wasn't there in the first place. Arnold didn't know what happened or what monster attacked him. He simply felt something coming from that direction and blocked simply by following his instinct and senses. He waited for a while. His senses tingled about something coming from multiple directions. He swirled his spear in those directions to block whatever was coming. The same process is repeated for some time before Arnold decided to simply destroy the field. He slammed the butt of his spear on the ground, and everything started shaking within a 3 kilometers radius and splitting apart. The beast that has been hiding started surfacing one by one. Arnold saw what looked like a giant praying mantis. He didn't know exactly what it was, but they looked like that with sharp scythe-like blade as their hands while standing like they bipedal. There were many of them, but they won't pose a challenge to him at all. While only their invisibility skill could at least do something at all, but Arnold was sure he can react to it like he already did twice. The monsters immediately started attacking. They literally came in a wave for Arnold's life. Arnold smiled, waved his spear before the monsters could even blink as they moved. Arnold wasn't in his position anymore. Arnold arrived at another side of the field and started waving his spear. Wherever he moved to, a head must be taken. If any head wasn't taken, that particular monster would be split in half. As Arnold moved as he was dancing and harvesting souls, he ducked as he felt something coming from behind. He slammed the body of the spear in the praying mantis head, which exploded, splashing blood on Arnold's face, who didn't even flinch and happily bathed in the blood. As Arnold moved, the monster wave started dwindling at a fast rate. The monsters changed tactics and immediately used their innate invincibility skill. Everywhere became quiet again, and only the sound of the wind and plant moving as they colliding against each other could be heard. Arnold just stood still and didn't move. He knew this wasn't over, and he didn't have to wait long for them to make a move again. He didn't need to close his eyes or concentrate to heighten his other senses. His physique had already transcended such mortal things. The first monster made a move by striking for his shoulder. Arnold blocked. Using the weight on his spear, he changed his motion, redirecting the monster's movement and slashing at the supposed place the monster was supposed to be. Arnold felt his spear tears through meat with ridiculous ease. As the praying mantis died, it immediately became visible. As if on cue, the rest followed and struck without hesitation of any sort. Arnold didn't stop his movements. He simply followed his senses and instinct as he moved and flowed effortlessly like he was one with his spear. Arnold continued blocking, sending of streaks of light as the blade of the monsters and his spear met. He entered a defensive state as he kept blocking and parrying and attacking once in a while. If any monster slipped up, Arnold stopped parrying and reflecting the attacks as if he suddenly gave up. He then smiled, then turned invisible just like the praying mantis monsters. He literally disappeared from their sight. This was the monsters' advantage over their enemies. Many didn't see them coming at all. But Arnold, although couldn't see them, he could sense them. After they used their invisibility on him a second time, he simply learned and copied the skill for himself, while also unlocking another passive skill that made concealment-type skill non-existent in his presence. Due to him dealing with the invincible monster, both skill worked hand in hand. This was the real way to improve skills, technique, and everything. Through constant battle, fighting, and putting your life on the line. People couldn't just become strong by entering seclusion. If people entered seclusion and came out when they became extremely strong, they would be nothing but empty husk, as even people in lower realms would be able to win against them and kill them due to the difference in experience. This was also one of the reasons all these powerhouse sent their young ones out and into battles, because hiding and gaining power was nothing but fake in itself. Fighting was, and is, and will remain the fastest way to improve your skill and technique. But even if during battle you could improve, it wasn't at the level Arnold just displayed and improved like he was on a rocket. People couldn't just copy and use skills or innate ability and techniques of people that were battling in real time, even if they put their life on the line. Any improvement they had was of their own skill and technique, as they spent their whole lives on those skills and techniques. Even if they are so talented and manage to learn other people's techniques and skills during their battles, they won't be able to make up for the difference in proficiency. But Arnold learned the concealment skill and even took it up a notch, making his better than theirs while also gaining a skill that made any hiding in front of him useless. This was how ridiculously talented he was. Not only him, all 10 subordinate of Anthony were this talented, but they just didn't know it yet. They were still comparing themselves to others of the Golden Generation. They had spent the last decade in the divine realm improving and sparring together. So to them, this was a normal improvement that matched other people their age. But how could they know? They had always been at the bottom of everything, be it society, ability, power. They had always been at the bottom. The only person that could compare themselves with was Anthony. But if they did, they would be in for despair, as even their talent paled in front of Anthony's. The monsters that were attacking Arnold, while invincible, were stunned by the sudden turn of event. The space element. These were the source of her pride. But at the end, after everything she did, she lost her first rank position to someone who she didn't even put in her eyes initially. She even lost miserably in a one-on-one confrontation, which made her put in more effort. Later, when she accepted the vice president as her master, she was happy and put in her entire 6 months in a hard work and other to get back her rightful position from the person who took it from her. Just to find out the person had become lazy, but she didn't dare underestimate him or let down her guard, as she wasn't a fool. Besides, she still has that dragon that was hot on her tail if she faltered any moment. During the written exam, she was confident to top the ranking this time, even though she couldn't top the battle ranking during the entrance exam. She knew it was different this time, as she has her master, who helped her on almost everything and every time she hit a wall. She wanted to get the first rank on the written exam in order not to let down her master and also prove something to herself. But when the results were released, she ranked 3rd on the ranking. This broke her and shattered her resolve and confidence she had built up. She further thought of how she disappointed her master and couldn't help but clench her fist in anger. She was indeed angry at herself. The human boy whom she thought had become lazy, although she didn't let down her guard around him, still came from nowhere after months of sleep and took away her rank yet again. This time, even the dragon who was hot on her tail stood above her with 1 point. That may be just 1 point to a few, but that 1 point was like the difference between heaven and earth, as getting a 995 in the exam wasn't an easy feat. Yet her 2 opponents did things she couldn't. One had the ever-challenging new perfect score, 995, which only 2 persons has ever gotten since the Academy came into existence. And the other had the impossible perfect score, which her master even told her nothing about after asking her for months. She knew that Dean hadn't given the dragon anything or told him any secret about the impossible perfect score. If not, he would have scored above the 995, so she concluded she lost a point due to her own shortcomings. But she couldn't understand how someone who did nothing but sleep and eat and took no mission at all has a score that even the disciple of the dean and vice president didn't get. After a while of feeling down, she had a new fire burning her eyes. Even though she came 3rd this time on the written exam, the battle exam was different. She was sure she had surpassed that human boy and just had to be wary of the dragon. So she had to go all out. And for that, no mercy has to be given. She dealt with each monster the shortest time possible as not to waste time or slow down. This was a battle against time, and she couldn't disappoint her master a second time. This time, she would stand above that dragon and human and have them both under her feet with her absolute strength. Passion, motivation, and confidence burned in Tiara's eyes as she believed in her strength and skill she has built over the past 6 to 7 months. As she moved, she sensed multiple auras in a particular direction. She immediately changed posture and ran in that direction. As she moved, she arrived in what seemed like a mountain range, as it had mountains surrounding the area, with water flowing like a lake and green grass growing on the ground. Tiara saw a few beasts moving about, some with their weapons, some just lying down, some gulping and chewing whatever they killed as food. They had a long tail and stood on 2 legs with claws on their hands and vertical slit eyes. They were a race called lizardmen. They were also a warrior race. They were green with scales covering their entire body, with a small clothes covering their sensitive areas. As Vivian stood from afar and looked at them, one of them suddenly opened its eyes and looked in her direction, locking eyes with her. Then it roared, waking the rest and alerting them of an intruder. They all looked in her direction at the same time and roared together like it was choir. Although Tiara attacked whatever she came in contact with due to limited time, she wasn't charging in blindly like a fool. They had been warned of the presence of SSS rank monsters, so whenever she saw a nest, she always observed for a while before attacking. Although she could win against an early-stage SS rank monster by fighting across ranks, as she was at the early-stage S rank, and she was a genius, such performance would still take all her mana and bring injuries, which she couldn't afford as this was a fight that was given a 24 hours time limit. For those that are confused, F is early stage, F is middle stage, F plus is peak stage. As she didn't notice any SS, and above monsters, she made her move by teleporting in their midst. She unsheathed her sword as she just stabbed the nearest one to her in the chest before it could even react. As the lizard men were a bunch of unintelligent race, they didn't think much about how she disappeared and appeared. They just went straight for attack as soon as one of them fell into the darkness. Tiara, not wanting to waste too much time and mana here, as she still had battles ahead of her and didn't know what would happen, opted for fight with pure physical strength and her sword alone and other to save mana. A lizard man arrived in front of her and cleaved with its axe. Tiara blocked it without any trouble. Another came beside her with spear and was about to thrust it at her. Tiara simply sent a kick to the beast, and its entire upper half exploded like fireworks. As they were too many, Tiara decided to use the most little amount of mana possible and deal with all of them in one fell swoop. She controlled the blood of their fallen comrade and formed thin blood ropes and bound all of them, bring them all to a halt. Tiara blurred as she moved instantly to get her points, as anywhere she moved ahead was already in the sky with blood flowing out each and every neck like a fountain. Their dead bodies didn't even drop to the ground as they were decapitated. They were still held in place till Tiara was done with all of them in a mere 5 minutes. She waved her hands as the blood binding the lizard men moved and brought all corpses they held to her as she put them in her space ring. She controlled all the blood on the ground from the battle and stored it in her space ring also. Then she disappeared without wasting time. He opened his eyes in what seemed like a room, on a bed he was too familiar with. He looked around, and he saw children near him, which he recognized also. Tears unconsciously fell from his eyes, as he didn't even know when he started crying. This was the orphanage where he grew up with love, care, and hate at the same time. Some of the children hated him because he was quite better at his studies than them. Not that he was smart or intelligent, but he just had better grades than them. Some children that became jealous tried to bully him, but Mike was no pushover. When push came to shove, he would simply handle them or beat them up in self-defense. Mike wasn't one to back down when he knows he has a chance against you. If he doesn't have a chance at all, he would simply run away. So even if some of the children hated him, they couldn't really do anything than grumble and complain and feel jealous from a distance. When children awaken at the age of 10, they usually continue staying at the orphanage until 13 to 14 years old, and they're told to leave and fend for themselves. Don't compare this world to our world. The children here are literally too big, tall, and intelligent for their age because mana simply developed everything here. Even if they don't awaken until 10, mana still passively seeps into their body to make them developed. Mike left the orphanage at 13 and joined the Adventurer Guild in order to have an income and become stable. Some part of the money he sent back to the orphanage. When Anthony gave them $1 billion each, he sent back 40% of that to the orphanage. When Mike woke up in the room, on the bed, the remaining children woke up also as their eyelashes fluttered open to the morning sun. One of the girls looked at him and said with a really cute voice, "Good morning, brother. How was your night?" Asked child one. "My night was good. How was yours, sister?" Mike replied with a smile plastered on his face. They all started their usual morning routine as they worked by washing the dishes, sweeping, washing clothes. As they carried out their morning duties, one of the jealous kids walked up to Mike and said, "Well, if it isn't Mr. Smartpants," said the boy with a sarcastic tone. "Not everyone is as dumb and stupid like you, so I should call you Dumb Pants," Mike retorted. Mike went by the day with happiness in his heart, but that happiness was mixed with melancholy and heartache. After going through the day, night arrived, and everyone settled in their rooms to sleep. "Big brother, good night. Don't have nightmares like before. I am sure you will awaken a good class during the awakening, and Big Brother will become the strongest in the world and become a god," said Child 3 with a cute voice again. Mike smiled and said while looking at the moon with slight happiness mixed in his voice, "I already met a god sister. When did you meet them?" Mike didn't reply. He just kept looking out the window. Then he sighed and said, "It's time to leave, sister." "Where are you going, brother? The headmistress would be angry if you leave the room right now," said the sister. "I will be back soon, sister. It won't be long. Just wait for me for a while," Mike replied. "I am waiting for you, brother." Mike stood up and smiled at his sister and left the room. Immediately he did. His face returned to normal. Crack! Sounds of glass shattering echoed, as everywhere broken apart into shards and returned to normal natural environment. Mike had been in illusion all these while. He had fallen into the illusion since the moment he appeared here and opened his eyes. He knew something was wrong as his senses always tingled constantly throughout the illusion. But he was too happy to break away as he saw the people he considers family. Even as he stayed in the illusion as his heart had wanted to, his mind refused to stay and kept sending warnings. One wanted to stay, the other wanting to leave immediately. His mind developed a skill immediately as he has been in the illusion for a while, one that allows him to easily see through illusions, thanks to his ridiculous talent again. When Mike got the skill, he saw through everything, but he still decided to spend some time with them before he decided to leave here, as he has something to do. Mike looked at his watch and saw the time. "It seems like I spent 1 hour in real time, huh? It seems I might have to work harder in exchange for my foolishness." Mike looked around, and he just saw trees upon trees everywhere. He was about to move when another illusion appeared. Anthony stood in front of Mike and said, "You are my greatest failure. I gave you everything, and you couldn't Eve." The illusion shattered before the fake Anthony could finish speaking. The instant it shattered, a sword came out from nowhere, aiming for Mike's head. Mark blocked the sword with his own sword and looked at the attacker. The attacker had a long hair running down his back with 2 pointed ears, with chaos radiating from its body without restraint. It was an elf, or rather the Forsaken cult's dog. Marcus squinted his eyes at this new development. There was no chaos in the air or anything. The elf appeared immediately he entered the illusion. "To think you would break out of the illusion so quickly. Color me surprised human," said the elf. "The only color I have right now is death," said Mike as he shifted the balance of his sword and his hand blurred as it aimed at the head of the elf. The elf was decapitated, but Mike didn't fall for it. The elf turned into mist and disappeared. The real elf appeared on a tree and looked at Mike. Mike looked back at the elf as their eyes clashed. "I didn't expect you to see through that too. Your illusion technique are just basic techniques. You would have to use something better to fool me." "Is that so? I wonder how our battle would go." As the elf was about to disappear again after the last sentence, the atmosphere suddenly became hot. Mike already had enough of this elf's nonsense. The elf really dared to bring his family and his boss into an illusion. The elf has definitely crossed a river of no return here. The elf looked at Mike, and its eyes widened in shock by the sight it saw. The entire forest suddenly turned crimson as Mike subconsciously controlled the fire element in the air, making the entire surrounding turn into a different temperature. Trees burned, stones melted, mountains shook just from the sheer change in temperature. Mike walked with steady gait and bearing, as if his footstep was echoing throughout the forest. As Mike walked towards the elf started sweating as its danger senses kept ringing and ringing, but it couldn't take a step back or forward as it just stepped on a tail it shouldn't have touched. Mike arrived in front of the elf and said, "I'm sure you aren't the only Forsaken cult dog that is here. Give me their location, and I will give you a quick and painless death." This was a way for Mike to save point, as he already wasted an hour. Although he was angry, he could still think clearly. He won't just suddenly turn into an idiot and let his emotion cloud his judgment. Why run around in circles and search an entire forest while you have someone that could just give you the information and just head straight for their base? The elf, engulfed with a monster in front of it, spilled everything it knows without a second thought. Mike raised his hands and held the neck of the elf and lifted it off the ground and said, "There are some things that aren't meant to be touched at all." Then the fire element in the environment moved and converged around the elf as it was burned and fried the elf alive as it turned to crisps before it could even feel the pain from the burn. Mike looked at the wind which carried the ashes, then moved with a speed burst in the direction given by the elf and other to gather points. Brian arrived at a beautiful forest that gave a peaceful, calm, and serene feeling. Brian didn't fall for such nonsense, as he believed it to be a monster's trick. Brian could be seen running in the forest with a steady but fast speed. The more he ran, the more he frowned, as the peacefulness just kept increasing. Brian increased his speed, then he would suddenly decrease it, then once again stop totally, then look around. He had been doing this for 30 minutes now, but he still hasn't sensed anything off in the environment. Even mana in the environment was stable and not reacting to anything. Brian hasn't seen a single life form since he arrived in this forest. Only small insects that stay on trees and flowers like butterflies could be seen occasionally. But besides that, nothing at all could be seen in this forest. This only increased Brian's uneasiness, but he didn't make any hasty decision due to impatience. As Brian stopped, he looked around for a while and just sat down on the ground and closed his eyes. As he closed his eyes, a tentacle suddenly shot out of nowhere and whipped at Brian. Brian instantly shot up into the skies with speed. The moment he left his position, the tentacle landed on the ground and broke the ground apart, creating a web shape. Brian smiled as he was mid-air. He purposely dropped his guard and other to elicit a reaction, and he indeed got one. As he was mid-air, many tentacles shot out into his direction, whipping at him. Brian controlled the fire element and burned them before they could even reach him. He landed on another tree, looking at trees that just made a move at him. As he looked at them, the tree he was standing on shot out a wooden spike from its trunk at fast speed. Brian saw the spike coming, but didn't bother to block it. As the spike landed on his body, it shattered to bits upon impact. The dragon physique wasn't a joke. Their scales wasn't something that can just be broken through with some meager attacks. Brian touched his sword hanging on his waist. His hand flickered for a second before Brian removed his hand from the sword. The instant he removed his hand, the tree was cut into thousands of small fine size that matched each other. Only humans are limited to a certain area, because they are limited by the class they awaken by age 10. Other races can simply wield any weapon they wish and use it together with magic if they wanted. Of course, if they have enough talent for the weapon and element, as nobody would want to waste their time learning too many things and be a master in none of them. A human who awakened the swordsman class can't go learning spear arts. The human could wield and learn spear art, but his class already granted talent and perk for the sword. Nobody is willing to waste enormous time learning another thing outside their class, which has no advantage at all. But other races like vampire, dragons, and other who aren't limited by class can learn anything as long as they have sufficient talent for it. As a dragon with ice talent can't go using fire element, they don't even have a talent for, and they could decide to learn all weapons if they wanted, but they would end up being an empty husk, as each weapon is an endless path on its own. A master of one is better than jack of all trade. Everyone knows this. While only Klaus can be a master of all because of his unique class. Brian dropped from the tree as he already lost his footing as he killed the tree. He looked around the entire forest while frowning. Treant Brian thought as he looked around. He was in a forest filled with trees which was almost endless to him. For all Brian was concerned, every single tree here is an enemy, as all of them could be Treant. He was frowning because there were simply too many of them. This was an entire forest to begin with. If all trees here were Treants, then things have gotten ugly, as he doesn't enough have mana nor stamina to fight an entire forest alone. He could simply move around while fighting them, but this wasn't a survival game where he could stall time and other to last the entire 24 hours. It was point-based. Even if he killed many treants and obtained points before using his life ball to escape, his points would be cut in half the moment he leaves before the time given. Brian considered simply transforming into his dragon form, then wreak havoc here and obtain as much point as possible before escaping. But the dragon form also consumed mana. In layman terms, Brian is fucked. This is why he has been frowning. He simply didn't see a way out of it, as he was contemplating on what move to make that would obtain the most points. An alluring voice that could make even the most depressed and sad person happy and cheerful sounded in Brian's ears. To think a baby dragon landed in my sector. It's been a long while I saw your species. Tell me, what is your name, young one? Brian turned and looked at a being that had a human body, with two branches extending from its forehead like horns while having hair made of leaves, dressed in a green gown and birds and butterflies resting on its body. Dry, Brian thought, as he already learned about them in the academy. They normally had wind and planet element, as they are usually found in the forest, and majorly called tree spirit. It seems the baby dragon doesn't want to reply. You killed some of my children during the fun, so I am here to collect my compensation for their lives, the dryad said again, with a more charming voice. Brian still didn't reply, and just kept watching as he knew that things would soon go south. But before that, in order not to be caught off guard, he would have the first attack and catch the dryad off guard instead. Brian instantly took a stance as he bent his right knee forward and drawing back his left leg in preparation to release an attack on the dryad. Dragon technique. Fire sword type. Scorching slash. Mana weaved on Brian's sword together with the fire element, and Brian released a torching attack right off the bat. All process completed seamlessly in one motion without hesitation. Devastating fire wave with sword marks was sent in all direction. The dryad smiled as Brian released his technique, then it made its own move. Dryad plant magic. Vine cocoon. Plant vines moved like tentacles as they created a cocoon around the dryad. The attack landed and razed down everything in its path. The treants around the radius of the attack were reduced to ashes. But the cocoon remained steady without a single dent on it. The cocoon opened up as the dryad came out still with a smile and said, "Entertain me, dragon. Your death shall be the payment." The exam has been going on for hours now. Some already injured, some already used their life ball to escape as they weren't confident in their battle skills and due to the presence of many monsters. Anthony has been watching everybody, not only his subordinate, and he saw everyone has indeed improved. Even those at the bottom of the rankings still made some certain improvements in some areas. Anthony was surprised by Brian's and Tiara's progress. Their progress was really attached to a rocket flying through their controls. The way Tiara controlled blood and bound the monsters, and way she moved with precise motion with no wasted movements and took their heads. Then Brian's control on the sword and the way he killed the treants with minimal effort. They indeed made outrageous progress under the guidance of the dean and the vice president. Vivian could be seen fighting a group of demons as they kept charging in. Vivian already sensed where a lot of demons gathered together. She sensed a formidable presence there, and she was heading there. A demon jumped out of the darkness, stabbing at her heart. Vivian waved her hand, and the demon froze and exploded. "Human, stay and play with us. We want your blood. Give it to us," one of the demons shouted as it arrived behind her and slashed with its claws at her back. An ice wall appeared behind her, stopping the attack on its path. Ice spikes grew out from out of the wall, stabbing the demon to death. Vivian became tired of these ants flooding her. She'd been holding back, releasing little spells, pretending like she was saving mana. But these little demons are pushing it. She has to give them a reply. Ice magic. Rage of the ice goddess. The dark, chaotic atmosphere suddenly turned extremely cold. Thousands of snowflakes started falling from the sky, creating a beautiful scene. All demons stopped in their tracks and marveled at the scene. Some raised their hand and touched the snow flakes out of curiosity and the beauty. As the snowflakes touched them, all they are froze from within their body, turning into blocks of ice. Even the trees and grounds that the snowflakes fell on froze up while releasing cold aura that also froze everything in its path. Then she continued moving towards the presence she felt earlier. On another side of the forest, Clement could be seen cutting down demons on his path without the slightest hesitation. Clement disappeared and appeared behind another demon and sliced its neck. Then he disappeared again and appeared again at another location. Clement technique, dagger series, swift death. Clement moved with his 2 daggers and ran amok on every single demon he saw. Most didn't even know what happened. Clement only disappeared and suddenly they were dead. Clement waved his hand and took their corpse and felt a familiar presence moving in the direction he was heading to. He smiled, then continued his movement in that direction, heading for the same presence. After a few minutes, Clement arrived at a building where he felt a formidable presence. He just waited outside for a while, and after a while, Vivian arrived at the same building. Clement looked at Vivian, and Vivian looked back at him. They knew they need to act like this was their first time meeting. You can use a higher combat power from here on out. Anthony's voice sounded in Vivian's and Clement's mind, but they didn't turn or look around. They were just as expressionless as before. Clement walked up to Vivian and stretched out his hand and said with a smile, "My name is Clement." "My name is Vivian," Vivian replied, and she shook his hand. "So what are we going to do about that?" asked Clement as he stared in the direction of the presence. "How about we work together then? We can share the points afterwards," Vivian replied with a smile. As she said that, the presence walked out of the building with a menacing aura. It was a demon with a long tail, tall with bulging muscles with no horns or wings, with pitch-black skin with red eyes, and giving off aura of death while being at the SSS rank with a black-red sword that gave off a thick blood lust hanging on its waist. "I've been waiting for you two for a long time now. I couldn't wait inside anymore, so I came out to see you myself," the demon said in a tyrannical yet extremely bored voice. "I have seen how you laid waste to my army. I hope you put such effort in fighting me." As soon as the words dropped, the demon moved with speed befitting of an SSS rank and threw a devastating punch towards Vivian's head. Vivian had a ridiculous physique that was further improved by Anthony. She could see the punch coming at a slow pace. Even before it could arrive, she contemplated many methods to block. At the end, she decided not to do this physically and just stick to her ice magic. A thick ice circle appeared directly in front of her face, the exact place the punch was meant to land, and blocked the punch effortlessly. Clement blurred and arrived like a ghost beside the demon and thrusted his dagger into its heart. The demon looked at Clement with a bored gaze and raised its other hand and caught the dagger between its thumb and index claw finger. Before the demon could make another move, Vivian intercepted by holding on the other hand that punched her and sent a deep chill through the body. The demon's eye momentarily left its bored state as it released an intense flame from its body. Vivian and Clement immediately moved back as they didn't want to find out what that black fire was or what it could do. "Blocking my attack, making me use my element barely 1 minute into the fight. It seems I have to be serious, as you geniuses always fight across realms, which is why I'm looking forward to you too." The demon drew its sword as it finished speaking, as the sound of the sword sliding against the sheath as it came out resounded. The demon instantly advanced and swung its sword at Clement this time around. Clement didn't even talk. He wasn't like other assassins who feared head-on confrontation. He swung his dagger and met the attack of the demon head-on without hesitation, and explosions resounded as craters formed under their feet as they moved ridiculously. Clement shifted the balance of his wrist and twisted his body and stabbed at the head of the demon with his second dagger. The demon retrieved its sword and countered Clement's second dagger. They both instantly increased their speed and strength simultaneously. Clang, clang, asterisk, 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 clang, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Sounds of metals clashing kept resounding continuously, and explosions resounding once in a while as the demon even forgot that Vivian was there. "Stupid demon, don't forget about me," Vivian said in a stern voice. "Ice magic, physical type, battle garment." She instantly covered her entire body in an ice battle clothing. She also raised her right hand. An ice element moved like it was absorbed by a vortex as a thick ice sword formed. She moved and caught up with both of them with just a step and slashed out at the demon. The demon had a crazed smile on its face as it raised one hand and covered it in thick black fire and slammed a punch at Vivian's ice sword, bringing her to a halt. The demon was in the middle, stopping Vivian's sword with its left hand coated in fire, while also stopping Clement's dagger with its sword covered in chaos, which was in its right hand. "Your fire's annoying, demon," said Vivian. "Of course it's not those ordinary flames other demons use. I'm the ruler of this sector for a reason, human," replied the demon as it disappeared. Demon technique. Hell fire sword type. Dark rampage. The demon sent a terrifying attack at them with happiness as it has lost its boredom. Clement didn't even bother defending. He used void step movement technique and left like he was never there to begin with. Vivian saw the attack coming and waved her hand, taking the attack head-on. Ice magic. Ice blizzard. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped as everything suddenly froze like it was frozen in time. As the fire sword attack and ice attack met, there was a deafening silence before an extremely loud outburst followed. Boom! The temperature turned hot and cold, each fighting to take control over the forest, as everything within a 50 kilometers radius was reduced to ash and ice cascade, as ravines and crater formed everywhere. Earthquake kept moving and bringing down everything. Clement, who already escaped, stood on a tree in a far distance as he looked at the destruction these two caused, and whilst he was like an assassin dealing deadly attacks with one blow, expecting to take his opponent's life on that first attack, so his attacks aren't flashy but are deadly. He marveled at the flashy destruction these two are causing. Though it wasn't his style, doesn't mean he won't admire it. Everywhere was literally searing cold and hot, as the temperature here was unstable. Even the space within that range kept quaking and getting destroyed as it amended itself. Vivian seemed happy for some reason, even though her ever-cold face didn't show it. Her eyes were shining brightly. She was happy that she could dish out such attack without any consequences or thinking of paying for destruction of building and environment. With a smile on her face, she cast it again. Ice magic, ice blast. A ridiculous amount of mana that someone at the S rank shouldn't have was released from her as she moved the ice element and froze everything as it gathered in front of her, and she shot a frightening beam towards the demon. The demon smiled as it saw such attack coming towards it. It took a stance by raising its sword to the sky and went on to unleash its own attack. Demon technique. Hell fire sword type. Wrecking slash. Hellfire intertwined on the demon's sword as it brought down its sword. The demon cleaved the beam in half, as the halves were sent throughout the forest further, causing disastrous commotion. Clement, who seemed to be forgotten, appeared as soon as the beam was cut in half like a perfect assassin and went straight for the head of the demon. The demon's danger senses rang as it shifted its head on reflex, but Clement's dagger still landed a slash across the demon's face, taking an eye from it as blood flowed out. The demon didn't even react to the injury like it was something so insignificant. The demon had been long too bored. How could a mere pain come in the way of its happiness? The demon raised its knee and sent an attack towards Clement's ribs. Clement raised his palm and blocked the attack while placing a mark as he made contact with the demon while blocking. After blocking the attack, Clement sent out an elbow attack to the face of the demon on the place the injury was. The demon was sent flying backwards with intense speed due to the force behind the attack. Clement instantly moved and appeared in front of the demon as it sped backwards and dropped another kick to the ribs, as cracking sounds were heard coming from within the demon's body as the ribs cracked as the demon's body changed direction again mid-air with increased speed and force. The demon bounced on the ground with great power, creating craters, as it brought down frozen trees and collided with mountains, coming to a stop after colliding with a third mountain. The demon stood up after a few seconds with injuries riddled on its body from the force of the collision. Ha ha ha. Yes, this is it. This is what it means to live, the thrill, the emotion, the happiness of walking on the edge and dancing with death. Don't think, because I already lost my sword, I am now useless. The demon dashed forward with chaos coated on its feet towards Clements with fervor. Demon technique. Hell, Fireclaw type, 1000 gash. The demon's hand sent out 1,000 claw attacks in less than a second from its fingers, as it had claws as fingers. Clement technique, dagger series, Death's Cut. Clement swung his daggers with stupefying speed and parried the attacks as he completed his technique flawlessly and released another technique as soon as he was done with the first technique with seamless motion. Clement technique, dagger series, hidden slash. Clement slashed out 1,000 times with greater speed this time, as his hands simply became non-existent for a moment, like it was hidden in space due to the maddening speed he moved his daggers at. The demon, surprised by the sudden increase in speed by Clement, but wasn't late in its reaction time. It managed to block the 1,000 slashes, and another 1,000 landed on its body, creating marks and slashes all over its body. The demon was shocked again, because the first 1,000 it blocked was nothing but fakes that Clement created and sent out while hiding the real attacks under the fake ones he dished out. Before it could reply to Clement with its own attack, Vivian arrived behind the demon, with death threading ice gathering on her palm. Ice magic, physical type, glacier palm. As Vivian was about to land the attack on the demon's back, it suddenly turned to her, as it has always been wary of her ice. The demon covered its palm with hellfire and sent out its own attack to counter Vivian. Vivian's and Clement's eyes met, and they understood each other, and, as if in sync, they activated the same skill they had at the same time, called spatial mark. Since everyone already marked each other when they were in the divine realm, Vivian and Clement teleported to each other's positions as they switched position because they activated it at the same time. Immediately, they exchanged positions. Clement appeared in Vivian's original position and tanked the demon's attack by also covering his palm in darkness element, while Vivian appeared behind the demon in Clement's original position and landed her attack on the demon's spine, causing a mind-numbing eruption of coldness as the demon was blasted forward. Clement was in front of the demon, but before the demon could slam into Clement as it was blasted forward by Vivian, Clement activated spatial mark again and teleported out of the way and appeared on the tree he was before, where he whistled as he already marked that tree and other places. This was a demon territory. Anything could happen. Clement already marked some place and other to dodge any attack he couldn't react to in time like this one. As the demon was blasted forward, the ice palm attack froze its internal body as its organs were about to collapse as a result of the frozen system. It covered its body with thicker hell fire this time around as it wanted to melt the ice, but it seemed the human girl put more effort into this one. Before it could even melt any of the ice that was internally causing problems, Clement activated spatial mark again as he teleported behind the demon and thrust his daggers into the heart and head at the same time with great force. Clement already marked the demon when the demon sent a knee attack at him, which he blocked with his palm and left a mark, which was this spatial mark. The demon had a shocked look on its face as it died. It didn't know where these two suddenly brought out spatial technique from, as they hadn't used it through the entire fight. Clement looked at the dead demon and sighed. "That was a tough fight," he said as he sliced the demon in half from the waist. He gave the upper body to Vivian and took the lower body of the body. They both looked at the time and saw only a minute was remaining. So they just sat down and started recovering the lost mana. In a cottage, Anthony looked at Clement and Vivian with a smile on his face, while in his mind as he was still faking his sleep. These two subordinate really gave him an entertaining show. In fact, all of them gave an entertaining show. Indeed, this was the golden generation. Even students in the lower ranking performed well. This was simply a good show. Anthony reckoned that if this was a show in his past life like an anime, it would get a good rating. At 10 seconds remaining of the time, he opened his eyes from his fake sleep, as he hasn't moved at all since he arrived. He raised his head and looked up with a smile, as if he was staring through the roof and space as his eyes made contact with other eyes, as he was still smiling as the countdown ended. Anthony and all remaining students were immediately teleported out automatically from the secret realm as the battle of ranking finally came to an end. Observation room. The silence in a graveyard would be too loud compared to the silence that currently stayed in this room. Everyone was simply too shocked to speak. They didn't even know what to say if they really wanted to speak. What they saw was simply too much to not make them stunned. 10 students came out of nowhere and simply wreaked havoc in the sectors they appeared in. The dean and vice president were busy bragging earlier whose disciple would top each other. Yet these students did something outrageous and shine more brightly than them. The most surprising part was the entire 10 of them were all humans. Earlier during the entrance exam, 6 humans took the top 20, which was unusual. Now another 10 popped out again and overshadowed everyone. Of course, the 10 students were Anthony's subordinate. It's not that they were looking down on the humans or anything, but this was definitely abnormal, and something was at play behind the scenes here. Humans didn't have any bloodline or special talent or trait like other species. This was why only them awakened classes which allowed them to even take a step further. Their numbers and diversity allowing them to get to their current standing, as they were always relentless. But this was simply too much. The humans produced too many geniuses this time. This wasn't the first golden generation, neither was it the second or last. They had all seen golden generations, and they were human geniuses amongst them, but not as abnormal as this. But this was the academy. They were simply here to teach. They couldn't do anything against them or anyone. They can only observe and teach them like they are required to do. But that doesn't mean they couldn't find out what was happening. What if it was the demons or any other thing at play here? They would, of course, find out, and if they find anything dangerous, they won't hesitate to intervene. The dean looked at Klaus and asked, "What is up with the humans this time around? Or are you all finally afraid that the humans are finally producing geniuses that surpasses yours, and now you feel threatened?" replied Klaus with a smirk. But even Klaus, too, was surprised when as he watched the exam. How could he know what was happening? "You know, that's not what I meant, Klaus." "Well, how am I supposed to know what is happening? Besides, you know, nobody can produce such geniuses. Even if they did, they won't send 10 of them out at the same time, as that would be stupid and showing us their cards," Klaus replied. "It could also be nothing is at play here and destiny is trying to do something. Of course we would investigate, but if nothing is found, we would try to bring them to our side before the demons and forsaken cult poach them, as usual," the Blood Empress said as she focused on the students. Kevin simply just kept his eyes on Anthony as everyone continued discussing. But even as they discussed, their eyes never left the screen in front of them. As they discussed and watched at the same time, the conversation suddenly stopped as one of the reasons for the exam had finally moved a muscle. Then suddenly the person raised his head and looked upwards as his eyes peered through the roof and space as his eyes met the eyes of everyone in the room through the screen. Then he smiled at them, then he disappeared. The room was sent into another silence, but heavier this time. "This is impossible," said one of the 4-star professors. "How did he know?" asked another. "Was he tipped off?" asked another. Everyone in the room was a powerhouse and been through their fair share of scheme and battle, so they understood very well what that smile meant. It simply meant he knew of their scheme. Besides, he even saw through them and looked at them through the screen, meaning that he knew he was being watched and he knew what method they used, which was impossible as this was only made exclusive to the 4-star professor, the dean, the vice president, and Klaus. The only person who wasn't from the academy who was here was Klaus. He didn't work for the academy and was here to repay a favor. The professors looked at him with questioning gaze as the possible leak, as there was no way they believed a mere 15-year-old child saw through their schemes. Klaus didn't bother replying and simply released his aura and killing intent. Everyone in the room, asides the dean and vice president, was brought to their knees immediately, all vomiting blood, and their cultivation realm dropped a minor realm. They bled from all 7 orifices as they battled to keep their consciousness. The entire academic domain shook at Klaus' aura and killing intent. Buildings shattered, glasses broke down, people within the domain fainted, and an earthquake erupted with intense magnitude. Klaus wasn't the type who bothered scheming. He was someone who went straight to fighting if he had an issue with you. This was one of the reasons people didn't dare go against him or scheme against him. You would be dead on the spot if you did anything against him. This was what was happening in the observation room. Klaus simply just gave them a punishment for having such thoughts against him and accusing him of such, If they weren't the dean's subordinate who was a friend of his, he won't leave them with some minor injuries or just a drop in a minor realm. He would have taken their lives here immediately. That was the kind of man Klaus is, a no-nonsense man. He talks straight and goes straight to the answer. He doesn't go around killing people. If he did, many people would have come together to put him down. Your death meant you did something against him. The dean looked at Klaus and said, "That is enough, Klaus. You have given enough punishment." Klaus looked back at the dean with an expressionless face, but with burning eyes, as if he was ready for a fight to the death with the dean if the dean made a move or said anything wrong at this moment. After a few seconds, Klaus removed his killing intent and said in a cold voice, "I would spare them this once with light injuries and a minor realm as punishment, but if they have such thoughts again or make a stupid move like this, I would take their heads no matter what you say. Slaughterer, keep your slaves in line while I am here." As soon as he was done speaking, he disappeared with his aura like he wasn't there in the first place. Everything returned to normal, but not the destruction Klaus just caused just by flaring his aura. The 4 stars professor were still coughing up blood and were bleeding from all 7 orifices. Even Kevin, the Blood Empress brother, wasn't spared from getting injured, even though he didn't have such thoughts with the others. He was simply a collateral damage. But on the brightest side, he didn't drop a realm, as the vice president protected him with just enough aura to avoid dropping a realm. But she didn't protect him from getting injured. The dean looked at his 4-star professor and said in a stern tone, "You all asides, Kevin won't receive any salary or academy point or recourses for the next 1,000 years. You won't be allowed to purchase anything from the academy for the next 1,000 years. Kevin was only spared obviously because he didn't have same thoughts as them, not because of the vice president. The dean continued speaking. "The fact that I personally brought someone here to teach and you doubted him simply spits on my name. The next time you do such nonsense, I would kill you myself before Klaus even has the opportunity to do so." "Yes, Dean," they all replied with fear. "All costs for the repairs of everything that has been affected and destroyed or spoilt will be taken from your pockets," the dean continued. They cursed their stupidity. They knew how Klaus always behaved. Although he was a free type of guy that talks and jokes with everyone, once you overstepped, you would be put in the ground. They knew he wasn't the scheming type, and he had no reason to tip Anthony. But they looked at him due to reflex, as he was the only one who wasn't bound by a mana contract like the rest of them. They were only alive because of the dean, but they dropped a minor realm as a result of their foolishness. Every single minor realm matters, as it takes years to even progress. Yet they dropped a realm because of their stupidity. This was the reason the vice president protected Kevin. Even advancing a minor realm takes years of hard work and resources for people of their level, and not even receiving the resources for another 1,000 years was maddening. The professors brought out potions from their space rings and drank them to heal themselves. The dean looked back at the cottage where Anthony was and said, "Give back the human boy his first rank." "But that would be unfair to the others," Dean someone said. "Yes, Dean, others worked the entire time, but he did nothing but sleep. We are simply rewarding him for nothing," another one said. Also from the intel, he has become lazy and arrogant because of his rank and now sleeps a lot during classes, replied another. The dean replied without even looking at them, "If you're talking about fairness, then you won't have schemed against him. Scheming against a 15-year-old child is already unfair in itself. And now you're talking about fairness." The vice president chimed in by saying, "Even if he has indeed become lazy and not strong enough to sit at rank 1, the others only have to challenge him for his rank to get it back. It's as simple as that." The professors nodded as they indeed had nothing else to say. Even if Anthony has become lazy, the others only need to challenge him for him to lose his rank, and that's all. "What should we write as his score then?" said one of the professors. "Just input 3 question marks there and give no explanation to anybody, not even to the other professors, and allow them and the students to guess whatever they like and grant him twice the amount of academy point the second ranker obtains," the dean said as he disappeared from his seat. When everyone opened their eyes, they arrived back at the Colosseum they were once in before they were teleported into the secret realm by the professor called Dame. Some people already gave up before the estimated time even ended. They arrived and were healed as soon as they came out. As the students arrived, some were bleeding, some pale due to mana exhaustion and too much blood loss, Some had a limb or two missing, some on the brink of death, but refused to give up because of the life ball because they understood what such artifact could do. Some looked fine and fit, like haven't even moved a muscle since the exam started. Of course, some weak ones already had the thoughts of hiding and not fighting at all, neither for battle point or academy points. They just wanted to survive and have the life ball because they knew no matter the amount of points they gathered, they wouldn't be able to buy it. Let's not even talk about the ability to even gather those points in the first place to begin with. So they hid and simply didn't make a move at all. Although some were lucky and weren't attacked the entire 24 hours, some were attacked by lower-ranked creatures. So they just handled it, took the body, and changed hiding spots. Some were forced to use their life ball because they were attacked by stronger monsters. Some already had plans on what to do with the life ball. Some already planned to sell it to some experts or in an auction to make more money for themselves. But what they didn't know was that the Academy already had plans of buying it back from those of them who were planning to auction or sell it off. Those who originally had thoughts of mass-producing the artifact already deleted such thoughts from their minds, as they didn't want to meet their maker so soon. But what they didn't know was that nobody has actually tried to mass-produce it in the first place, because they never actually owned the artifact in the first place. The Academy always gives the life ball to students whenever they are entering any secret realm the Academy has, but they always took it back from them whenever the students were done. It was only used as a reward this time around, because of their scheme with Anthony. So what Dame said about those that tried to mass-produce the artifact still trying from the Death Realm was a lie, because no one ever tried since no one ever had the artifact in their possession in the first place. But at the same time, it wasn't really a lie since the Academy was ready to harvest the head of whoever tried to mass-produce it. When Anthony and his subordinate arrived in the Colosseum, the 10 of them looked at each other, dying to know who was left out of the top 10. This was more than a matter of just pride. They didn't even entertain the thought of someone out the 10 of them sneaking into the top 10 and pushing more of them out of that ranking. Such was their confidence in their battle prowess and the battle they just fought few seconds and minutes ago. A healer appeared in the air the moment all students arrived and simply just waved his hand, and water element moved and healed every student in a second. It was as if time was reversed in itself because they recovered too quickly. Even their blood loss was mysteriously recovered like breathing. The only thing left behind was their empty mana cores. The rest of everything was simply perfect, as they felt energy brimming through their body like they were in peak form. This was simply how good the healer was, and the difference between realms. Healing someone of lower ranks and minor injury was no different than blinking. Talk less of people in the mortal rank, SSS rank and below. As the healer was done, he flew away without waiting. Healers were always busy, as there were always battle, so people always required their service. So healers were one of the richest out there, as they could literally charge you anything if they really wanted, as a potion can't help you recover. After all, you can't take your treasures to the grave. Brian and Tiara looked at each other as soon as they were done with the healing, as both of them sustained quite the injury, even with the dragon scale and regeneration they both respectively possessed. Sparks of light flew in the air as an intense competition of who would be ranked first in the ranking occurred between them, as they had both given it their all during these 24 hours as they went at it without even a single rest or stop. If they weren't fighting, they were running looking for the next monster to gain points. They didn't bother looking at Anthony, who could be seen leaning on a wall with his eyes closed like he wasn't here, and the exam had nothing to do with him. Dame floated down with his spear still hanging on his back, but he was even more strict this time because he had dropped a minor realm because of Klaus. Some of you were a disappointment, as you escaped early without even fighting with your life on the line. At the end of the day, you all are green pigs, and the top 20 are all just bigger pigs, Dame said, as he looked at those who escape using their life ball, as they could simply escape if they really put in an effort or used their brains a little. But they ran away due to fear and couldn't calm down due to where they appeared. But who could blame them? The secret realm was different from the Baran forest where they had the entrance practical exam. The secret realm was simply filled with monsters who were more ruthless and bred like goblins. They were simply too many. Dame wondered how these idiots were able to pass the entrance exam. But the truth is, Dame was too vexed to see the truth due to dropping a minor realm. Every single student tried and made a good progress in their own right. Even if they escaped, they still fought and survived, trying their best before escaping. Anthony could sense Dame's emotions due to all-seeing eyes. His eyes could also passively see mana movement, no matter how minute it is. Anthony could tell something happened to Dame within those 24 hours they were gone because the mana around Dame had suddenly changed in quantity and was slightly unstable. But Anthony didn't care and wasn't bothered to find out, as it has nothing to do with him. Only if Anthony knew it had everything to do with him. Those of you who didn't escape can bring out your life ball now, so I can remove the coordinates on it, Dame said. Those who still had the life ball brought it out, and Dame took them using his mana control and removed the coordinates and gave them back to the students. He helped those who already had a coordinate to engrave the coordinate on the life ball before he gave it back to them. Everyone was happy as they held the life ball, some imagining the money they could get after selling it, some thinking of using it as a life-saving artifact. For those of you who have plans to sell the artifact can sell it back to the Academy. We would buy it back at the appropriate price that even those auctions won't give you. So if you're planning on selling them, meet me tomorrow, Dame said again. Some students were immediately happy. They could exchange it for resources and improve more quickly no matter how slow their cultivation speed was. If they sold an artifact of this caliber, the resources can be used to propel their self forward with speed. Of course, some people didn't put the artifact in their eyes, as they already had something of the same function or even better one on them since they came from top-tier families. But who would say no to more treasure? Of course, no one would, no matter how stupid they really are. Of course, they could exchange it for more resources from the Academy to further boost their cultivation since they already had a similar artifact, or they could keep it since life-saving artifacts were never enough. Especially these period the demons and cult were making outrageous and courageous moves. But to those who weren't from the top-tier families, this was an opportunity from heaven. Their mana rank was basically their lives, so it was right to sell the artifact for resources. Besides, if they keep the artifact, they could fall into trouble, as people might want to kill them for it the moment they leave the Academy. Greed was simply too much in this world. Other students might have devious ideas and leak the news, thereby getting them killed, thereby keeping the artifact for themselves, thereby selling it to the Academy, getting multiple resources. Anything that happens outside the Academy doesn't really concern the Academy if it isn't connected to them. So a student dying during holiday had nothing to do with the Academy, but a student dying during an Academy mission has something to do with the Academy. Even if they sell it to other people or auction houses after they take the money from selling it, will they have the strength to guard their money after selling it? There is no justice for the weak. The only thing that spoke in this world is your strength. If you don't have a strength, then don't touch or eye any treasure. If you touch any treasure, you better take it to your grave. Killing was no different than breathing in this world. There was no police here to arrest anyone or anything or court to judge anyone. Only your strength spoke for you. It's as simple as that. Survival of the fittest is the only law here. Of course, all of you already know this, but things bought from the Academy can't be given to another person for whatever reason that is. I am sure you know this, Dame said as he looked at those who wanted to sell their life ball to the Academy. Now it is time for your results, Dame said. The atmosphere immediately tensed up as everyone waited for their fate on the matter. Dame smiled as he saw them being anxious, and he has to say, he quite enjoyed the atmosphere here. Then he clapped his hands, and a projection appeared above their heads, just like the same one that appeared after the entrance exam. Battle ranking. Rank 1, Null, Anthony. Points. Rank 2, Vivian, 900,560 points. Rank 3, Clement, 900,500 points. Rank 4, Spectre, 899,970 points. Rank 5, Lit, 897,739 points. Rank 6, Evelyn, 889,393 points. Rank 7, Ross, 887,297 points. Rank 8, Donna, 886,458 points. Rank 9, Arnold, 883,917 points. Rank 10, Marcus, 879,870 points. Rank 11, Mike, 870,784 points. Rank 12, Vaughn Bryan, 410,937 points. Rank 13, Terps Tiara, 409,990 points. Rank 14, Stormbringer, 395,983 points. Rank 15, Storm Rider, 395,973 points. Everyone was shocked when they saw the ranking. This was simply too unexpected. The ranking changed in many ways. The top 10 changed drastically. None of them were found in their original position aside from the original first rank holder who was said to have become lazy. 10 new persons simply came out from nowhere and took over the rankings. 10 new dark horses was way too many and outrageous to them. Brian's face changed to a frown when he saw he was ranked 12th. This was simply impossible to him. He fought an entire forest of Treants for 24 hours without rest, but he was still ranked beneath the top 10. This was simply impossible in his book. Even Tiara was shocked when she saw the ranking. She had been fighting for the first place with a dragon, but suddenly she fell so hard that she didn't even enter the top 10. She saw unfamiliar names on the ranking and wondered who these people were. She saw Anthony's name still on the first rank, and without a score. She didn't understand what happened, but that was the least of her priorities right now, as she needed to find out who these 10 new people were. Brian and Tiara both looked at Anthony, who was still leaning against the wall without a care in the world, with his eyes closed. They thought he had become lazy and arrogant and didn't train, but it seems they were the one who were arrogant. How did he do it? Tiara and Brian thought at the same time. Even the 10 new dark horses couldn't surpass him, and the score on the board was even more appalling. The 10 of them had shattered whatever record there was for the highest point by a large margin. Although Brian and Tiara too broke this record, there's paled in front of these dark horses who literally doubled their scores. As they looked at Anthony, Anthony opened his eyes and looked back at them, then removed his eyes as if they weren't worth his time at all. Then he looked at the ranking with an expressionless face, then removed his eyes from the ranking. Dame looked at Anthony for a split second, which people of Anthony's level won't notice. But Anthony did notice the gaze he received, as he indeed received this ranking without even moving a muscle. Anthony's spot on the ranking meant the dean received his message. That was the reason for the smile he sent during the last 10 seconds as he looked up into space before he disappeared. The eye contact literally meant he knew, but the smile meant another thing entirely. The dean and vice president were old men and women who were also schemers, understood Anthony through the smile and just left his original rank for him. Although Anthony was still a child and didn't have enough power to demand back his original rank, his grandfather wasn't a small player by any means at all. As everyone were still shocked from the ranking, Mike was busy frowning as he cursed himself for being outside the ranking. If only he didn't pay attention to the illusion and destroyed it from the onset, he won't waste an hour there. But because of the soft spot he has for them, it took a whole hour. Although he compensated for the wasted time by going to the enemy base directly, it seems it wasn't enough. He sighed as he was the one who fell from the ranking. The top 20 should come to the front for their class badge, Dame said. 20 people walked to the front as Dame landed on the ground. Everyone was stunned as they saw world-shattering beauty and handsome men walking up to the front. Some remembered seeing them after the break when school resumed at the gate during the identity check process. The world top 11 most sexy were literally the top 11 in the class. People murmured as they witnessed something outlandish. The human species has taken over the ranking without even leaving a single spot. Tiara and Brian observed these 10 new people with curiosity and an intense gaze. Even the Storm brothers were looking at Anthony's subordinate, wondering where they came from. As Dame placed the badge on their chest, he said to them and the rest, "You are now the top 20 of the S class. You should live according to standard. It's needless to say this, but you all know that only those with the top 20 can challenge themselves. Those outside the rank can only challenge them during the year-end exam. You are free to rest today. Classes start tomorrow morning as scheduled. So rest with the hours you are given." As he finished speaking, he left like the wind. Kevin appeared in place of Dame and looked at the students and said, "I am in charge of converting your corpse to academy points. So those of you with corpse follow me to change it." Kevin started walking as he finished speaking, as he didn't wait for any reply. Everyone followed behind him as he walked away to another place. Anthony didn't move as others walked. He still leaned against a wall, as usual, as he watched others as they went to get their free points. He looked at his subordinate who created a good show for him and smiled as they walked away while carrying themselves with grace. As everyone left, he teleported, as he disappeared from the Colosseum, then arrived at his room door, where he input his password and walked in. After bathing and admiring himself in the mirror, he changed the design of his clothes to pajamas, and he sat on the bed and pressed his phone for a while before he turned it off. As he was about to sleep, his wristwatch vibrate, the notification being he received points from the academy. Anthony smiled at this. It seems the dean is really going all out with his compensation, huh? Well, not that I am one to reject gifts or complain about them, Anthony said with a smile. Then he closed his curtains and slept off, although it was still day and he didn't move a muscle during the battle ranking. But Anthony was a sleep lover, after working countless days and nights with countless shifts here and there in his past life. He would take every chance he gets to sleep. Anthony woke up feeling refreshed and happy, even though he didn't do anything or work that needed the rest. He decided to sign in for the day as usual. Even though he already has many rewards, he won't forget to sign in for a single day, even if the world was ending for whatever reason. Ding. The host has signed in. Congratulations, the host has won a skill. Passive, Sense Dome. The host has a dome that constantly surrounds him at all times. 1. The host is constantly aware of everything that is happening 360 around him within a kilometer's radius, which can also be increased, be it life, death, mana, physical objects, ethereal objects. The host can detect it all and more. 2. Nullifies all concealment technique, no matter what rank the user is. Anthony loved this skill. There is nothing like sneak attack to him with this skill, although the infinity skill would stop all sneak attacks, but this is an extra card that detects them before it even happens. Anthony got off the bed and stretched a little, then went about his bath and his narcissistic behavior. As he admired himself in the mirror, he felt two people coming. He was confused what these two were doing here. Knock, knock. He heard knocks on his door and walked to open it to ask what they were doing here. When Anthony opened the door, he saw the Storm brothers, Ryder and Bringer. "What are you two doing here?" Anthony asked. "Can't friends visit each other?" Bringer said with a teasing smile. "Friends my ass. You both have never visited me. So what's with the visit this time?" Anthony looked at them suspiciously. "At least allow us to come in first and offer a seat. That's basic courtesy, man," Ryder said as he walked in directly without even waiting for a reply from Anthony. Bringer followed behind him. They both sat on a couch in the living room and looked around. "The mana here sure is denser. Is that why you are so fast when you cultivate, Bringer?" "The first rank sure is treated specially," replied Ryder as they started talking to each other like Anthony was in the room. "Truly, why are you here? You have never visited me in the entire 6 months we were here together," Anthony said as he sat down on a different couch and crossed his leg. The Storm brothers looked at Anthony and asked at the same time with a smile. "How did you do it?" "What do you mean? How did I do it?" "Come on, man. You became lazy as hell," Ryder said. "We literally saw you sleep throughout class and only eat," Bringer added. "You literally took no mission, bro," Ryder said again. "Aren't you supposed to be smart one, Ryder? You are meant to keep your brother's nonsense thoughts in line," Anthony said as he felt a headache coming. "Just tell us, and we would be out of your hair," Ryder said. "I sleep in class doesn't mean I don't train and cultivate in my room, and you dumb," Anthony said as he looked at them. "I have a training room here, a mana-rich room. I have everything I need here. Why should I train any other place besides I am always sleeping during class because I always pull an all-nighter?" They both looked at Anthony weirdly as his explanation made sense. "Humans are truly cunning. You trained all the time while being hidden, then slept in front of everyone, making them think you were lazy," Ryder said. "Father was right. You humans are truly more cunning than demons," Bringer replied. "There is no cunningness or anything here. I only slept, and everyone jumped into conclusions. Whatever scenario you have in your head is a lie," Anthony replied. "But how did you even top the written exam while sleeping, while still getting a perfect score?" Bringer said. "I only took notes from another student and paid him with points. Pretty easy," Anthony replied again. Then, what are the ones we have to find from the library then? Any knowledge from the library can't be shared no matter how small, Ryder said. Do you really think my family won't have any of those information in the library? I have read them all before admission into the academy. Anthony gave an answer again, without hesitation or even blinking. Then how did you get the perfect score? Bringer asked. That I don't know. I only answered the question asked, and I saw the result. I don't understand the fuss about this. Anthony said. Besides, Bringer, aren't you the one who is cunning here? You always present yourself as someone who knows nothing, always acting like all muscles and no brains. But you secretly ranked 15th on the written ranking, Anthony said playfully as he looked at Bringer. My brother helped me on that. I have nothing to say. I act first and think later. Doesn't make me dumb, does it? Bringer replied. Don't you have anything for your visitor? We came to your house, and you gave us nothing, Bringer said. I have nothing for you two muscle men. You should cultivate and increase your battle ranking instead of asking others for free food. Speaking of cultivating, what is up with you humans? You people literally have the top 11 to yourself, asked Bringer. Do you know who those 10 humans are? They literally just came out from nowhere and topped everyone in the ranking, Ryder said. But even as they topped everyone, they still couldn't win against you. Tell us your secret, Bringer said, as he really wanted to know. Maybe destiny is finally helping humans, and other races are now becoming afraid that we may climb to your level and surpass you, Anthony said with a smirk. Besides, I can tell you my secret on one condition if you really want to know. What condition? The Storm brothers asked at the same time. Defeat me in battle or spar or any game or anything you want. Once you either of you defeat me in anything at all, even if it's the most food eaten in a day, I will accept my loss and tell you my secret, Anthony said with a smile as he looked at them. What do you want in return if we lose then? Ryder said as he looked at Anthony. That's the best part. Nothing. You can challenge me with a clean fist every time, knowing you have nothing to lose and I have everything to lose. How about we arm wrestle, then? Bringer said as his muscle started flexing and his clothes increasing like it was about to be ripped apart. Ryder slapped the back of Bringer's head. Why are you slapping my head, brother? Bringer complained. Have you forgotten he stopped a serious punch from me with a finger during the entrance exam? How the hell do you want to win against him in arm wrestling? Ryder said. Anthony looked at Bringer like an idiot. He clearly told them to win against him in anything, because if he said they only had to win in a fight or anything physically like arm wrestling, then they stood no chance at all. How about you introduce me to that human girl who is ranked second then, Bringer said. Anthony looked at Bringer and imagined him being frozen in thick ice, then broken to pieces. Aren't you meant to marry another Titan and preserve your bloodline, or whatever? Anthony replied. I can branch out of my family. Such duties of preservation of bloodline is up to my good brother Ryder here, Bringer shrugged. Anthony sighed at this idiot. If he really had to talk to this guy every day, his IQ might just decrease without him knowing. I think you should leave her alone, Anthony said, amused. Why? I am handsome. I'm strong. I am rich. I'm also the brother to the heir of the Titan clan. No lady can reject me, you know. Anthony just held back his laughter and said, She is ranked second because she is strong. Besides, she might freeze you to death. I suggest you stay away. We will know after I try, Bringer said, unconvinced. As the dean appeared in his office, which wasn't really an office, but an entire realm on its own that was even bigger than the secret realm the students had to survive for 24 hours. To fit such expansive space into a small-sized office space like another layer of space is something only those at the peak of the world and having heaven-defying space element talent and control could create. The dean's fake office was the ordinary room that looked no different than that of an office worker, but with bigger space. The real office is the realm which he always stays and which only a permitted few could step into at any time without permission. Even while still being in his real office, the secret realm, he could still see and hear everything happening within the academic domain if he so wanted. The dean sat on a seat as he tapped the armrest and thought rhythmically. A portal opened up as the vice president walked out of it with a majestic gait as her hair was still floating like they were really dancing to the sound of the wind this time. She walked up to the dean and sat opposite him as she just looked at him as he was lost in thought. After a few moments, she asked, Are you thinking about those human children? The dean looked at her, without saying anything and with an expressionless face, but it was clear what he was thinking at the time. There is simply no need to think too much about it. I just have to gather information about it, and that's all, the dean said as he shook his head. Then he called out to an empty space. Aiden. A shadow suddenly came out from nowhere before it took the shape of a man, but the face was concealed. Give me all current information about rank 2 to rank 11 while they were in the academy and what they did when they left for the 1-month break, the dean said. As the sovereign wishes. Then Aiden disappeared and went on his job. The dean and vice president didn't have to wait much, as in 10 minutes 20 files were brought back by Aiden as he laid them on the table. 2 files on each other of them was brought back by him. One was before the 1-month break. The second was after the 1-month break. The dean and vice president read them all in seconds and dropped back the file. So they were bottom rankers during the entire 6 months, the dean said. They took missions, bought resources with points, and were barely at the D rank at that point in time, the vice president followed up. Then they suddenly disappeared together for 1 to 2 weeks each, and came back more powerful on the day of the academy. Even more beautiful than you, I must say, the dean said as he smirked at the vice president. The vice president turned to Aiden and asked, Did you find out what happened in that time period they disappeared? Where did they go to? What happened on the day they disappeared and all that? There is no information about this, Your Highness. Apologies for my inability, Aiden said as he bowed. All 10 of them happen to be orphans, also the dean said. You may leave, Aiden. The dean's voice sounded again. Aiden then disappeared without speaking at all. It seems we can only meet him and ask for what happened in that time period, the vice president said as she looked at the dean. It seems we would have to trouble him again, the dean replied. Don't talk like we disturb him every day or something. He just sits down and enjoys. We pay him for nothing. He should put in more work instead of lazing around, the vice president said with a sneer. The dean just shook his head and didn't reply. The dean and vice president stood up together from their seat as the vice president opened up a portal leading to an unknown place, and they both stepped into it. Then portal closed behind them. In another location, a man could be seen sitting down eating a bag of chips with many more lying around him. Anyone who simply saw him now would instantly know he was a foodie, but the man always denied it as he never even had a fat body or anything. He was lean, with good muscle tone, 6 feet 9 inches in height, with a flawless skin that didn't even represent what he ate. He had a black bandage that covered his eyes that matched his black hair as he just sat there without a care in the world. Suddenly a frown appeared on the man's face. I wonder what they want now. Tisk. Always disturbing my free time. I even work more than slaves at this point. They should just put me in chains and make it clear, the man said as he clicked his tongue. He stood up from his seat and started arranging everything as everywhere was really messy from everything he ate and will be eaten in the future. Miraculously, he could even see while blindfolded as he picked up everything without tapping around or guessing and avoided anything he would have collided with. He set up 2 more chairs as he brought out 2 cups of juice and just kept them in front of each seat. Then he sat down as he was done arranging everything he needed while sipping another juice from another cup. 3 seconds after he sat down, space quaked as a portal opened up as 2 people came out. A man and a woman stepped out of the portal and appeared in front of the blindfolded man. They didn't say anything as they just sat down on the 2 seats that were already provided and drank the juice given. They were the dean and vice president. It's nice seeing you too, the man said smiling. Cut the crap, Seer. We know you don't like seeing us and even curse before we arrive, the dean said as he dropped his cup on the table. I don't even know why you're complaining that you work too much like you're a slave, when you literally do nothing all year round. You just stay here and eat junks. I wonder how you aren't fat, as you alone have saved some companies from bankruptcy through sheer eating alone, the vice president said. Maybe we should really put him in chains, since he sees himself as a slave, like that his wishes would become true then, the dean said with a smile. The last time we even required your service was 20 years ago. Since then you haven't even moved from this place or even spoken to anyone. Yet you say you work like a slave, the vice president said. The man was called Seer because of his ability to see things about the past and certain things about the future. He is a human who was born blind. Well, more like without eyeballs in his eye sockets. So his eye sockets were literally empty, yet he could see more than most. How ironic. The seer sighed as these two just kept complaining. To him who could see between present, past, and future, 20 years was no different than yesterday. Can you both just stop and tell me what you want already? I'm a busy man, you know. Don't you already know? Just tell us the answer we want already, the vice president said. If I was all-knowing, would I be wasting my time in a place like the academy, the seer said. The dean tossed him the files to read on his own without explaining anything. The seer picked them up from the table and read them, even though he couldn't see. I see. Sure, then I would help check and find out. Come back next week, I would have your answers by then. Stop trying to brush off work, seer. Why are you so lazy? Just take a look and inform us what you see, the dean said. The seer took off the bandages on his eyes as it revealed his empty eye sockets. Then he closed his eyes. Well, his eye sockets. Then he opened his eyelid as his eye sockets glowed white with high intensity. After a few minutes, the white light disappeared as the seer put back on his bandages. Well, they aren't in with the demons or anything of the sort, he said. Just tell us what you saw, the vice president said. The seer just took out memory crystals from space rings and transferred what he saw into them and threw them to the dean and vice president as he was too lazy to speak. They both placed the memory crystals on their glabella as images flowed into their minds with speed, and after a few seconds they were done already. I see. So that's what happened, Dean said. No wonder they all came back stronger like that, the vice president said. They all got an inheritance from olden eras, while acquiring physique and bloodline from them, then trained in a time dilation realm. But we don't know the people they got the inheritance from, or what physique or bloodline they got. It's not like we can force them to tell us. The inheritance site also closed up and disappeared after it was taken. But 10 humans at the same time is too much. What is happening? Other races haven't received an inheritance at all, though. The dean and vice president conversed between themselves. The dean turned to the seer and asked, "Can you find out who those 10 powerhouses from olden eras are? I don't want to court death, please. I tried to see who they were, but I was caught and blocked off, so I couldn't see any of them," the seer said. "You were caught. That's a first," the vice president said. "Yeah, it's a first for me, too. Someone that can even catch me as I stare into the past is no small matter. They were even able to block me, meaning they could attack me from the past into the future, which is the now, the present. Someone who can attack across timeline isn't a small matter, and there are 10 of them," the seer said as he frowned. The dean and vice president fell into deep thoughts, as people who could attack through timelines were simply too strong. Even both of them weren't sure if they could attack across timelines, as they never tried. Only Noel Michael was rumored to possess such capabilities, as it is said he could slash through time and space if he wanted, but none of that has been confirmed. "What if you look into their future and see what it holds then?" the vice president said. "I almost died from the past. Now you want me to die from the future? You really do hate me, don't you?" the seer said. "Just give it a try, seer," the dean said. "Sure I will. You better not come for a millennium after this," the seer said. Then he removed his bandages again and closed his eyelid, then opened it back as his eye sockets glowed golden this time. The golden light calmed down after a while as blood flowed out his eye sockets, ears, nostrils. He even coughed up blood. Both the dean and vice president immediately stood up, and their aura flared up instantly. "What happened?" the vice president asked. The seer cleaned up the blood and put back the bandage and drank a potion he took out from his space rings. "What happened, seer?" the dean asked. After a few minutes, the seer said, "I received a backlash." "How is that possible?" the vice president said. "Did you see anything?" the dean asked. "I don't know how it is possible. It could be that I was attacked from the future, just like it could have been done from the past. Also, I didn't see anything this time around. All I can say is that some things aren't meant to be touched or spied on," the seer said in a stern tone. "Also, don't bring any matter concerning the 10 of them to me again. Also, your concerns about any power being at play behind the scenes is non-existent. I feel fate and destiny is just helping the 10 of them. So no need to suspect them. Just train them as they could be useful in the future," said the seer again. The seer took out another memory crystal from his space ring and threw it to the dean and said, "Don't try to use it until it glows golden and starts vibrating," the seer said. "Why are you giving me this?" the dean asked. "Well, I forgot to give it to you 20 years ago when you both came. Now you're here again. I can give it to you, the seer said. So you were meant to give this to me 20 years ago, and you forgot because of your laziness, the dean said. It's not like you would have needed it then. So it doesn't matter. Don't try looking for what is inside, as you won't see it. When it unseals itself, you will know, the seer said. You may leave. There are some things I have to take care of after the backlash. The dean and vice president nodded their heads. Then they left just like how they came. As soon as they left, the seer sighed and brought out his food to continue eating while he was lost in thought. You both can leave now, please. I still need to sleep. I feel like I won't get much of it in the future for some reason, Anthony said to the Storm brothers. We won't leave until you offer us refreshments as your visitors. This is literally the first time we are here, and you want us to leave empty-handed. Never, Bringer said, as he even got more comfortable on the couch. Anthony looked at these two, as he was sure they just wanted to eat free food, as the real tasty food in the academy was extremely expensive and cost points, and they weren't willing to waste it on food. Fine, I will buy you food at the cafeteria tomorrow then, after class, or whatever, Anthony said as he sighed in defeat. Great then. Enjoy your training. Even if you said you were going to sleep, I won't believe you, Ryder said as left with his brother. Anthony just locked his door and went back to his living room. He smiled, then created a barrier made of void itself which surrounded the room. He snapped his finger as space bent in another direction. Spectre and the rest were busy enjoying their new room when suddenly a portal opened directly underneath their feet and moved them in with speed greater than their reaction time. They all fell in before they could react. 10 portals opened up above Anthony as 10 bodies dropped immediately to the ground with their aura, mana, elements flaring as if they ready for war. It seems you all are having some fun, to the extent you even dropped your guards and fell into a portal, Anthony said, smiling, as every aura, mana, and elemental was simply snuffed out under his ridiculous control, and the 10 of them turned to empty husk. But they didn't even react as they lost control of their element, because they heard Anthony's voice. Boss, the 10 of them said at the same time. Boss, aren't we meant not be seen together for a while? What if the principal finds us here? Spectre asked. Well, he won't find you all even if he tried, Anthony said with confidence. Well, that's by the way, if you all have just been dropped into a portal by an unknown enemy, you would all be dead. You're lucky it's me. Don't drop your guards like that, even if you are with the strongest man in the world, Anthony said again. Yes, boss, they all responded. This boss thing sounded good at first. Now it sounds like I'm a boss in a cooperate company or something. So we would change back to sir or whatever till I find a new name, Anthony said as he was fell in thought. Anthony's eyes instantly fell on Mike, who immediately felt it was a death glare. Why are you fidgeting like I would kill you or something? Someone was bound to be outside the top 10. So no need to worry, Anthony said with a smile. Yes, sir, replied Mike. You all may get off the floor now, Anthony said as they all got up and sat on the couches. Well, I would have loved to congratulate all of you on being in top 10. Well, not all of you, but there is nothing to congratulate since all of you are basically stronger than everyone in the year already, Anthony said. Although I didn't say there would be a price, I would give you one, Anthony said. Mike frowned at this. He may not receive the prize, and this made his heart ache. No need to feel down. You would get the same price as everyone. No need to blame yourself, Anthony said. Mark heaved a sigh of relief as he just dodged a major bullet here. He didn't know what the gift was, but others might use it to climb the ranks faster than him. He couldn't take such risk at all. OP system, activate the subordinate system, Anthony said in his mind. Ding, host has activated subordinate system. System is generating subordinate system. Subordinate system generated. Searching for host subordinate. Host subordinate found. Subordinate system is binding with subordinate souls. Immediately the notification stopped for Anthony. It began for the rest of them. Ding. Host has been successfully found. Subordinate system is binding to the host soul. Binding in progress. 15%, 46%, 78%, 93%, 100%. System binding complete. Generating host interface. Transferring details about the system directly to the host mind. The 10 of them stared into space as a luminescent screen in a rectangular shape appeared in front of 10 of them. They saw writings floating in front of them continuously. Then they suddenly entered a daze as a bunch of information about the rectangular screen flooded their minds. After a while, they came out from their daze with an excited face. Their eyes glowed with intensity of what they could do with this gift was simply too much. Status, they all thought at the same time. Name, Spectre. Age, 15 years old. Race, human. Rank SS-. Class, anomaly. Physiques, lightning battle katana physique. Bloodline, none. Talent, limitless. Skills, click to view. Affinities, lightning. Technique, Spectre katana series. Shop, a shop that sells everything the host needs no matter how small or ridiculous it is. Subordinate points. Subordinate points are used to buy things from the system shop. Subordinate points are gained through killing of anything that has life. Inventory allows the host to store unlimited amount of non-living things in an infinite storage space. The shop was basically Anthony's infinite resource system, but for them they had to buy it with points while Anthony's own is free. This was another system Anthony wished for when he was making his wishes. This would allow his subordinate to grow faster and quicker. He didn't need to provide anyone with resources, as they would have to work for it by themselves and improve by themselves. As all 10 of them scrolled through the system and looked at their skills and everything, a change occurred. Ding! Detected that someone is trying to gather information on the host through physical means. Skill. The perfect one is activated. How does host wish to proceed? They all looked at Anthony on what they should do. No need to change anything. It seems they're gathering information about the 1 month you spent during the break. Everything is in the place. Just ignore it, Anthony said. Anthony already saw something like this coming, which was why he created clones of each of them when they were in the divine realm, so they won't have to change anything. Yes, sir, they replied as they opened their shops and started going through it. 30 minutes later, another notification appeared before them. Ding! Detected that someone is trying to gather information on the host through magical means. How does host wish to proceed? It seems the Academy indeed has a seer or someone who can look into people's past, Anthony thought. They're trying to gather information on what happened during the 1 to 2 weeks disappearances. I already gave you information on what if Phil and Anthony said. The 10 of them nodded and were amazed how Anthony could see and plan this far. They immediately followed up and faked their information instantly. Sir, what does anomaly mean? Mike asked. Anthony replied with a smile. It simply means you are no longer bound by fate or destiny or karma and things of that sort. Initially, you people's class were supposed to be mage or swordsman and the rest, but that has changed as you came under me. Meaning, destiny can't control you. Fate can't control you. Nothing can control you. You also have no predestined future or whatever. Anything that happens in the future is as a result of you causing or achieving it with your own hands, not because fate and destiny said so. Just like how you all were talentless. That was destiny's plan for you all. Awaken a normal class, live a simply life, and all that. So from now on, even if you die, that means you caused it, not because fate says your path has come to an end. Anthony's class already changed to anomaly when he broke through to the master rank, so he knew about it. The seer bled and vomited blood because of this reason, because they were no longer under fate's or destiny's control. So he simply suffered a backlash from staring into something he wasn't supposed to see. They all had a blank future. Whatever happens then, and there would be a result of their own choices. Initially, Anthony wanted to add the mission column to the subordinate system. Then he gave up on it for no particular reason. So what do you think about the system, he asked them. To think such heaven-defying things exist, Vivian commented, as she looked through the shop and saw the resources she could buy. They all had various comments about the system and everything. With the system, your progress depends on you. So if you fall behind, it simply means you have become lazy, Anthony said. You can even buy your own secret realm like my own and train faster in there. But I'm sure the outrageous cost will make you pale, Anthony said with a smirk. Everyone's eyes glowed with sparkles as they scrolled through the shop, as they thought of things to buy. Ha ha! Now I can just buy a Paragon rank mana pill and ascend directly to the peak Paragon rank, Arnold said with happiness. Mike scrolled to the Paragon rank mana pill and said to Arnold, while looking as if he was in him like an idiot. Don't you see the requirements there? First, you have to be peak Grandmaster rank before you can even take the pill to break through. Even if you break through and continue swallowing the pill like a snake and get a peak of the Paragon rank, your foundation might be unstable and you might drop a realm instead. Then I would just buy a perfect foundation pill to support my cultivation and foundation process. That way there would be no risk or anything of any sort, Arnold replied. Then Arnold had a sudden, outrageous thought in his mind. What if I buy a perfect foundation trait or something like that from the system shop, making me no longer need perfect foundation pill or points to buy the foundation pills at all, passively helping me make a perfect foundation every time? Such brilliant idea, Arnold shouted with glee. It suddenly hit everyone as what Arnold said was indeed true. If they bought such trait, the gains would be stupendous. They immediately opened the system shops to look for the trait, even though all of them have 0 subordinate points at the moment. Anthony looked at them with a smile. They basically wanted to buy a trait his physique granted him. He didn't tell them about his trait or anything, but he was sure it was the perfect foundation pill he gave them that made such idea come to Arnold, but he just kept quiet and smiled, waiting for their reaction. The instant they all saw the price, their eyes nearly exploded from the ridiculous amount of zeros they saw. I think we should just stick to buying the pills, Marcus said. I think so too. Such ridiculous price, Ross said as he sucked in cold air. Anthony just laughed at them, as he already expected this. In this world, foundation was everything. Everyone chased a good foundation. While the rich and talented chased a perfect foundation, and untalented or poor chased just a good enough foundation to get to the next realm in cultivation. There is nothing like perfect foundation in this world, as this isn't even a concept. Foundation isn't divided or classified into any ranks. Everyone chased a sturdy foundation because they understood this affected everything about their self, from battle prowess to cultivation speed to the next rank, to their lifespan as cultivation increases. Foundation literally did a lot of things. Creating a sturdy foundation takes time, just like mana cultivation. Unlike what Anthony did when he stepped into the master rank by swallowing pills left and right and got to the peak of the master rank. Others can't do that even if they take pills that stabilize foundation in order to continue. Surely other people have the same thought on what Anthony had done, others who have sought a shortcut, but alas, none of them were alive today for having and putting such nonsensical thought process to life. That's why even if these young masters have so much money to buy whatever resources they want, they can't just go eating pills and other to break through, as this was tantamount to suicide. Of course, there are those who even had thoughts of another way of cutting short cultivation, but you can't cheat the laws of this world unless you have a treasure or ability that transcends the laws of the world. This is one of the reasons geniuses could fight across ranks, because talent also affected foundation in itself. They come together like twins. You can't have a talent for cultivation and won't be able to have the ability to form a sturdy foundation to support your mana rank in cultivation, or having ability to form a sturdy foundation without the corresponding cultivation talent. So these pills shorten the time used to form a sturdy foundation, just like how mana rank pill shortens the time to actually cultivate to that rank, where you can use these foundation pills to steady your foundation when they become unstable if you caused any problems to them during your cultivation period. Of course, there are different ranks to the foundation pills, as you can't take a foundation pill of an F ranker and give to an S ranker, or can you even take the foundation pill of a master ranker and give them to a grandmaster ranker? So in this world, if you're an alchemist, or at least a talented one, then you simply destined to be rich like healers, as they basically make everything from mana potion, health potion, mana rank pill, stamina potions. So at least in this planet, if you have enough money, you can cultivate in peace and without issue. But of course, the prerequisite to that peace is to have enough strength to actually guard the wealth you want to use to purchase resources, or even sell the resources. If not, you might as well book a ticket to the death realm. Even when you sell treasures to auction houses, they would still kill you and take back the money they gave you as the price for the treasure if you're a weakling or you don't have backer. But at the end of the day, the question should be asked, what is really a treasure? A treasure is basically everything, no matter how small and insignificant it is in your eyes. It is a treasure in another person's eyes. AB ranked would see an E ranked holding a mana rank pill of the E rank. Now that is not a treasure to them, but trash. But an F ranker with no hope to step into the E rank seeing an E ranker with an E rank mana pill would plot or poison or fight. Whatever method they use, best believe they are coming for that mana pill. So in this world, everything is a treasure. It only depends on who actually sees the treasure. So if you don't have the strength to protect it, hide it. So basically in this world, if you have enough money or resources, you could basically make a pig fly. But that is if you really have the strength to guard such wealth in the first place. Although Anthony's subordinates were different, because he provided them with perfect foundation realm pill he bought from the system, so they all had perfect foundations. The pills were cheap to him because he is in the master rank and they're in the mortal rank, so they were simply too cheap to him to even bat an eye. But that didn't mean he was ready to use his own points to raise them, making them become lazy. So he chose a system for them with a shop so they could raise themselves with their own points. Everybody wins. But it seemed his decision when he chose a system was really a good one. The being limited him to a spending limit. Imagine him fitting an additional 10 people into that spending limit. It was fine now because they are now in the mortal rank, but what about later? Nobody knows for sure. So with this system he wished for, his subordinate won't become lazy. He dodged a big bullet by getting them their own system and not having to take a share from his own resources. So tell me about your journey in the realm, Anthony asked with a smile. They all started discussing and laughing with one another like children their age were really supposed to without the need to spill blood. They talked for hours as Anthony bought food and drinks from his OP system, and they all ate and drank to their heart full till it got late. It is nice getting to meet all of you and talk like this. I believe you should all get back now, as it's indeed getting late, Anthony said with a smile. It was nice seeing you, boss, Marcus said. Thanks for the food, sir, Litz said. They all thanked them and teleported on their own as they already marked their rooms with the spatial mark skill. Anthony laughed and shook his head as they left. These children really intend to abuse this skill to the end, he thought, as he removed the void barrier surrounding the room. He sat down at the balcony while looking at the sky with a smile on his face as he admired the moon. He really enjoyed their stay and the discussion and gist they had together that lasted hours. In his past life, he had no friends or anything of any sort, only constantly working. So the feeling of happiness and joy of discussing with friends while having food and drinks was something he has never experienced. So he quite cherished this memory he just had right now. They were subordinate, and he was their master. Doesn't mean he intends to treat them like slaves or anything like that. He would laugh with them once in a while and play with them, but keep it professional when the time for that is need. Anthony woke up from his deep slumber like a baby who had no worries or anything to take care of in the world. This was a world without any night shift, and he has a loving family, so it is indeed a world without much worries. Anthony felt something on his head. Then he looked and saw a bird sitting on his hair, sleeping peacefully. Anthony had decided to sleep at the balcony, so he just bought a small-size bed to fit the balcony and just slept on it without a care. That's why the bird was sitting on Anthony's head while he slept. Anthony smiled and lifted the bird off his head and just placed it gently on the balustrade without waking the bird from its sleep. He waved his hand and moved the bed back into his inventory and proceeded to his room to get ready for class. As he got ready for class, he danced and hummed as he was in a happy mood. What was yesterday's mood, from yesterday that was carried over to today? As he hummed, danced, and moved as he got ready for classes, he got in front of a mirror, and his footsteps immediately came to a halt. Anthony stared in the mirror for a while with a frown on his face as he was contemplating something big, a very huge matter at that. With such handsome face of mine, how come no girl has asked me out yet for an entire 6 months? Not even other girls from others races. An elf won't be bad, you know, or a fairy. I'm really not greedy, though, Anthony thought as he just stood in front of the mirror. But at least some girls should have asked me out already, or at least confessed their love to me already. All those novels I have read, the protagonist gets girls just by walking in the academy hallway, and here I am girlless. At this rate, won't I be a disgrace to Truck Cohen and Reincarnation Group? Anthony put his thumb and index finger of his right hand on his chin as he really contemplated this issue with all seriousness. What if one day I'm added to a group of reincarnators and I am the only one without a harem while others show off in the group chat? Won't I be a laughingstock then, Anthony thought as he frowned. In those novel settings, I am the male lead, and Tiara is meant to be female lead. Going by that lane, isn't she meant to confess that she likes me or something? Why hasn't she done it yet, or even made a move? She hasn't even blushed since I've known her. Strange. Wait, who even said I'm the protagonist in the first place? What if the being reincarnated me into a novel I didn't read at all, but suited the requirements of the world I wanted, and Brian is the male lead or protagonist here, and Tiara is the female lead, and she confesses to him, and they make a vampiric dragon hybrid baby. Anthony's eyes widened in shock as he thought of this. A tint of killing intent leaked from his body as this thought stuck in his head. Should I kill him and intercept his girl, or harem for myself? Sigh. No need to do that. I'm sure I would find a girl, or rather girls must find me with my handsome face. The being won't leave me like this and make me single, right? I can't be single in both lives. I died a virgin in my first life. Surely I won't ascend the heavens of virgin. Anthony nodded his head, then smiled as he left the mirror and continued dancing and humming as he prepared. Note: Anthony won't get any girl or have any harem. There won't be any romance for him in this book as stated in the synopsis. This is just one of his regular overthinking and narcissistic sessions, and that's all there is. Although Anthony could just use a simple spell to cleanse himself, he won't do that, as that would make life boring. Although he didn't need to eat every day, he would eat. Although he didn't need to sleep every day, he would sleep. He hardly did any of these things in his first life. Doesn't mean he would just toss them out the window, because Mana said he has a shortcut or whatever. Anthony stepped into the shower, then connected his phone to a speaker as he played a song from his playlist and sang along with the song as he took a bath. After an hour of an imaginary concert session, he came out of the bathroom in a bathrobe with a towel on his head, drying his hair. This was simply all Anthony dreamed during his night shift or when walking home, and he saw luxury cars flashing by with speed. Now he has all the means and money and everything, and you want him to just snap his fingers and get it done, thereby taking away the joy that comes with it. Never. After cleaning up his body, he walked to his bed and picked up his universal clothing, which turned into a boxers, and he put it on. Then he walked to his walk-in closet and selected some clothes to wear. Although he could turn his universal clothing to normal clothes, he won't do that all the time. If not all the clothes he buys would just go to waste, he might as well just donate them. Anthony wore a plain black trouser with white long-sleeve shirt, which he buttoned up, and a black long tie fitted to his neck. He wore a black vest over the white shirt with suit chains on them. He had a black opal wristwatch on his wrist, which screamed pure luxury. Then he put on black hand gloves and black shoes with a white long coat that was placed over his shoulders that has sleeves, but he didn't put his hands in them. The white long coat just rested peacefully on his shoulders as it flowed down his back and billowed due to the wind coming from the open window as it matched his white hair. He brought out his katana, which is black scabbard, and changed the scabbard color to mix of white and black, and placed it on his waist, matching his coat and trousers together. Anthony then put on some perfume and arranged his hair one last time as he was ready to step out. He stood in front of the mirror and looked at himself again with his piercing blue eyes. If before Anthony's charms could be gauged, right now he has broken that gauge. Although he was already perfect before, he was simply more perfect right now. Anthony smirked at such handsomeness and charm that only he could possess and walked out his room with a confident gait. Anthony could be seen walking in the hallway to his classroom as his coat and hair billowed as he walked. He radiated a gentle prince, charming aura that made anyone passing by impossible to ignore him or not see him. His colleagues from other classes were walking to their own class, but they all stopped to look at Anthony. He was simply too dashing. They all commented and spoke to each other as Anthony walked by with grace. The girls in one corner whispering to one another as they blushed and waved at him. How can such face exist? This is literally my Prince Charming. The white hair, the white coat, only a white horse is needed and my dream would be complete. Should I ask him out now that he is single? I would propose to him soon. Don't dare make a move. I have to convince my father to sell the family business so I can pay a groom price. Nobody can snatch him from me. Not before I make a move first. I need an alchemist to make a love potion for me. Then we would travel together and save the world from the Demon King. Maybe I should try falling, and he would catch me as I fall. Come on, girl, you are a C ranker. It would be a disgrace to suddenly fall and not even catch yourself on top of that. Girl, forget all those nonsense. In the face of love, what is a disgrace? Besides, if I fall into my knight in shining armor arms, who would dare laugh at me or our love? Such muscles, I want a man with such muscles. Then head to the Titan domain and leave him for us, girl. Those new 7 other guys in the top 20 are so handsome too, but every time I see Anthony, they suddenly become ugly. As the girls talked, the boys were in another corner whispering too. This guy would seriously make us graduate single, yo. I mean, such face, height, money, elegance, and power. Any girl would pick him over us. The more I see this guy, the more I think sexuality is indeed a spectrum. Maybe I am gay or bisexual. Look at you saying you are gay or bisexual after sleeping with every woman in all brothels you could find. Leave him to the truly gay ones like me. He is still single, and there is no news of him being with any woman unlike other young masters. Maybe he is secretly gay, so we might have a high chance at getting him for ourselves. You idiots are indeed salivating over another man, huh? Says the person that stared at Anthony the longest. With the stupid face he possesses, why won't I look? I am freaking jealous. Didn't they say he became lazy? How come he is still rank 1? Maybe you go ask him, you really think someone with such face and from a top family would be lazy? Let us pray he doesn't snatch all the girls in the top 10 for himself. Anthony smiled and was happy as he heard the girls' conversation about him, them calling him Prince Charming and everything. But he didn't show anything on his face or eyes. He still kept his poker face. Maybe I should get a white horse like the other girls said, and I'm sure one of them would propose by then, Anthony thought as he walked. Then he heard the boys' conversation, and his poker face he put on nearly cracked because of what he heard. What do you mean I am secretly gay? You're the gay one. Your entire family tree is gay. Your ancestors are gay, Anthony screamed in his heart as he walked. He has nothing against gay people, but the topic of him not having a woman is a very sensitive and personal topic to him. He is on the verge of being single in 2 lives in 2 different worlds, but someone actually dared to say he is secretly gay. I better not hear that again, or I will break your legs immediately, Anthony cursed in his mind. Earlier, he didn't want to teleport from his room to the classroom door, like he always does. He decided to walk to class for the first time today, so that some ladies can see him and confess and his love arc can begin, but someone jumped out and said he was gay. It seems I have to leave here immediately before another person says something more outrageous, Anthony thought. Then he disappeared from the hallway immediately. Anthony arrived at the S classroom door as usual. He looked at the time and saw he was 20 minutes early. He nodded, then opened the door to enter. Anthony pushed open the door without even using his hand. He walked in with one hand in his pocket like he owned the world. Everyone tilted their heads as the door opened. Everyone knew who came in as the door opened, as he was the only one missing. Anthony's eyes landed on 19 of his classmates and just looked at them with a poker face and gentle F-rank aura. Anthony sighed inwardly as he already knew this would happen. No matter how early I come, these guys seem to always be here before me. Imagine always being on time and never late, but you are considered a latecomer cause of others' actions. He walked without a single pause in his footsteps and went to his normal seat that was always behind the class and empty, as everyone knew he sat there. Well, not everyone. When the 10 subordinate came in, Clement sat on Anthony's seat and tried to be inconspicuous, but was told by another ranker that Anthony always sat there, so he left the seat immediately. Anthony sat down and looked out the window as the 38 eyes didn't leave him. Even Bringer, who was trying to ask Vivian out, whistled at Anthony's charm, as it was indeed too much. Out of everyone, Brian and Tiara stared the longest and hardest. They weren't staring like they were appreciating his face or clothing. They were trying to stare into his soul and know what secret he has that even 10 new dark horses couldn't even make him drop a rank, even after catching everyone off guard. They tried asking their respective masters, the dean and the vice president, what secret could Anthony possibly possess to make him so abnormal, special, but they were shot down by the dean and the vice president before they could even speak further. After Bringer admired Anthony's style of clothing and charms, He started imagining the amount of food he and his brother would get from Anthony. The Storm Brother were titans. They were ready to eat an entire cafeteria if they were really allowed to. Spectre stood up from his seat and walked to the back side of the classroom as he headed for Anthony's seat. Everyone's eyes followed Spectre, trying to see what he would do. Asides 9 people here, the rest thought that Spectre was going to challenge Anthony or something. So they wanted to see a show while having one thought in their minds. Only if he knew who that demon is. Spectre got to Anthony's seat and introduced himself, and extending his hand for a handshake. My name is Spectre. I am rank 4th here. While I'm hoping to change that rank soon and move higher, would love us to be friends if you allow it, Spectre said with a smile on his handsome face. Anthony, who was still looking outside the window, turned his head to Spectre with an expressionless face like he didn't know who Spectre is. To others, Spectre was trying to be fake friends with Anthony while finding out his secrets, then taking Anthony's rank from him right under Anthony's nose. Anthony shook Spectre's hand and said with a smile of his own, "Sure, the more friends the merrier, they say. I believe I don't need an introduction, do I?" "No, you don't. Everyone knows who you are. Even other students from other classes are already calling you King of Humans, Apex of the first year," and all that, said Spectre as he sat down beside Anthony. Although it was an S classroom that only needs 20 people, the academy won't build somewhere to actually hold 20 people. The classroom was literally a hall made to hold hundreds of people. No one has ever sat down beside Anthony, not even the Storm Brothers, who are on good terms with Anthony. So when everyone saw Spectre actually dare to sit near Anthony, they were stunned. It wasn't like Anthony told anyone not to sit on the row he sat on or anything. It was just that everyone just avoided each other here and didn't come to make friends as they were trying to snatch each other's rank. If not for Bringer, who seemed like a straightforward kind of guy, Anthony won't even be friends with the Storm Brothers. Well, since the more the merrier, I would have to introduce myself and become a friend too. Vivian's cold voice resonated in the classroom as she spoke. She stood up from her seat and climbed to Anthony's sitting area and introduced herself just like Spectre did. "The name's Vivian, rank 2, she said again as she stretched her hand for a handshake. Anthony smiled again and reciprocated the greeting like he did with Spectre. Then Vivian went ahead and sat down next to Spectre, who was next to Anthony. The other people in the class were left speechless of what was happening. Before they could even digest what was happening, Evelyn's peaceful voice sounded from the front. "Well, since the more the merrier." And just like that, all of Anthony's subordinates took advantage of Spectre's opening and Anthony's words and walked up to him and introduced themselves. And they all sat on a single row with him, as if the class was now divided by race and the humans were banding together. Anthony laughed at his subordinates' antics. They already said they would become friends somehow, but he didn't see this particular scene happening. He shook his head and continued smiling as he looked out the window looking at the sky. The door of the classroom opened, and 20 pairs of eyes shifted from their original position to the door as they know who just came in, as it was already time. Kevin walked into the classroom with his red hair and red eyes, as usual, and stood at the podium where he always stands. He raised his eyes and looked at all the students and saw that half of his former students had left the class, 5 died, and another 5 fell from the ranking. This is the most quantitative change, although there are always changes, but 10 was quite a stretch. It was always one at the bottom of the top 20 dropping a rank or 2, and that's all. But this situation was unexpected. Kevin looked behind and saw Anthony and his subordinate sitting on a single and last row of the classroom together. Kevin looked at the other 10 people sitting with Anthony and activated his eye ability. Immediately he did so. The 10 of them got a notification instantly. Ding! Detected that someone is trying to gather information on the host through magical means. How does host wish to proceed? The 10 of them were shocked when they got the notification. It seems people were always trying to gather information about them. Anthony's voice resounded in their minds. Just block the skill. No need fill in anything fake at all. They all followed his command and blocked whatever Klaus did. Kevin was quite surprised when his eyes failed and didn't get a single information on 10 different weak people at all. Do they possess special eyes too? No, they don't. I didn't get the same feeling I got from that human boy when he blocked my ability. They all sit together, and they all block my ability at the same time. Is the Null family making a move? Or are all 10 of them in it with Anthony alone? Well, not that it has anything to do with me, Kevin thought. He decided to just let it go and begin his class as it didn't matter to him. I will introduce myself again since we have some new students here. My name is Rave Kevin, your homeroom professor. I teach mana control and elemental control. Then class began as Kevin went on and on for hours without stopping. Now, I need all of you to form a mana ball the size of a pea, and the class would end here, Kevin stated. Kevin then raised his right hand and created mana ball the size of a pea on a single finger as a demonstration. Everyone immediately got to work and started by creating a mana ball the size of a ball first, then started reducing it. But when they reduced it a little, they couldn't reduce it anymore. They were all sweating as they continued trying but continued failing. Boom! An explosion resounded as Bringer's mana ball exploded in his face as he lost control of his mana ball. But such an explosion can injure many people, talkless of a titan. Others didn't have time to laugh, as they too were trying too hard not to break their concentration. Rank 1. Why aren't you and your seatmates trying at all? Are you already giving up without trying at all? Kevin said. Anthony didn't bother replying, as he just raised the index finger of his right hand and just formed a mana ball the size of a pea at once. He didn't need to make it the size of a ball and start reducing it, as his mana control already passed that stage. Donna and the rest simply followed Anthony's showmanship and created their own mana peas effortlessly. The rest of the students had a heartache as they saw how easy these humans created theirs, so they lost concentration and their mana ball exploded in their faces. Kevin smiled as he knew Anthony was already a monster in his own right, but seeing 10 new monster here, sitting together with him, all releasing F rank like Anthony, he couldn't help but send his condolences to the rest of his student, as they won't be climbing the ranks anytime soon. Congratulations to the 11 of you. 2,000 points each for your success, and an additional 2,000 points for getting it on your first try, Kevin said. After 30 minutes of continuous torture and trial and error, Brian and Tiara finally managed to reduce their mana ball to the size of a pea. 2,000 points to the both of you for your success, even if you are barely holding on right now, Kevin stated. As for the rest, none of them reduced it to the size of a pea, so no points for them. After a few more minutes, the class ended, and everyone started leaving one by one. Anthony, the Storm brother, and his subordinate walked together to the next class. Anthony, why are you following us to the weapon class? Didn't the professor already give you the graduation pass? Ryder asked. Well, I'm bored. I have nothing doing at all, so I might as well watch you all suffer, Anthony replied as he walked. What are you three beauties? Aren't you mages, or do you want to watch us too? Bringer asked as he looked at Donna, Vivian, and Evelyn. Well, who said we can't use weapons? Evelyn said as she looked at Bringer. Well, look at your hands. Those aren't hands of people who wield weapons. Besides, beauties like you should stay at the back while men protect you from these stupid beasts, Bringer said again like he was some hero. Says someone who is weaker than us, and even ranked lower than us, Vivian said. I always wanted to ask, what's the deal with all of you releasing auras of an F ranker? Are you people trying to make other people underestimate you cause no one will? Ryder asked a question that has always been in his mind since. Well, I saw Anthony doing it, so I just copied him. Besides, it kind of looks cool, Spectre said with a smile. The rest of them said the same thing, that it was all because of Anthony. So Anthony, since everyone is blaming you, what's your reason for always having this deceitful aura? Asked Ryder again. Just a hobby of mine, honestly. There is nothing to hide or any meaning behind it. I just don't walk around radiating intense aura, Anthony said as he looked at the Store brothers who were at mid-A rank. He was sure they just needed a little push, and they would enter the peak A rank and break through to the S rank and catch up to Brian and Tiara. Ryder fell into deep thoughts as he tried to decipher any hidden meaning in Anthony's words. But what Ryder didn't know was that there was no hidden meaning or anything. Ryder just liked seeing Anthony as the scheming type. Ever since his father warned him that humans were schemers, Ryder just tagged Anthony as their scheming boss. Anthony just shook his head as he saw Ryder fall into deep thoughts. He knew how Ryder saw him, but he didn't really care. They continued talking as they walked to the weapon training class being held by Klaus. Professor Klaus will be happy to see you in training today, Spectre said. I bet he won't be the only happy one. All those girls look like they would jump on Anthony any second they see him, Mike said. Vivian's face changed as she heard what Mike said. Then she flashed an evil smile on her face like she was ready to freeze all these girls that came near her boss. "Why do you say so?" Anthony asked as he turned to Spectre. "Ever since he let you graduate from the class. He seemed bored and too harsh with training, unlike the first time he trained us when you were there. So you being there today would make him happy and make us suffer less, Spectre replied. "Well, like I said, I'm going there to watch you suffer, not make Klaus happy," Anthony replied as he shook his head. "Well, that doesn't concern me. At least he would ease up on us today," Spectre replied. "Aren't you all curious how today's class would go now that we have acquired power and become talented?" Litz said with a smile. "Maybe we would get to graduate early like Anthony, and we would have more free time on our hands," Ross said. "I can't wait to spar with all those sons of bitches that look down on me," Arnold said with a smirk. "To me, it seems you all are trying to kill our classmates," Ryder said to them. "Sigh. You have always been a genius since you were born, so you won't understand the pains of the less talented," Donis said. Coming from someone ranked 8th, Tisk, Bringer said, "Well, if you all were so untalented before, how did you suddenly become talented and even climb the rank, and even rank higher than me and my stupid brother?" Ryder asked. "Well, for me, I got an inheritance on my way out. Honestly, I nearly died of heart attack when I was walking on a mountain to catch a nice view and suddenly fell into another space," Vivian said. "Well, for me, I took a mission from the Adventure Guild, but I suddenly got lost, and fell into an inheritance ground, and here I am now," Mike said. They all discussed how they got their inheritance one by one as they walked. "So all 10 of you got an inheritance at once. You know that is suspicious, right? People might think you actually work for the demons or the Forsaken cult, as you all suddenly became." Before Bringer could finish his words, 100 Eyes sword immediately formed and moved at him. They were literally inches away from stabbing into various parts of his body. Vivian walked to Bringer and said in a cold voice with a cold face, "If you say such nonsense one more time, I won't care about this stupid academy rules and kill you on the spot. Don't try me." Vivian walked away as she finished speaking, her face as cold as ever as the ice disappeared as she left. "Don't take it to heart, bro. Her parents were killed by demons. So you insinuating that she is working with the people that killed her parents triggered her," Marcus said as he patted Bringer's shoulder. Bringer cursed at himself for his stupidity. He just couldn't keep his mouth shut. Now he has blown his chance to ask her out on a date like he was planning to. Ryder slapped his brother's head for saying such a thing. Although Ryder also had such thoughts like his brother Bringer, he won't say such things out in the open. This is why he always called his brother all brawls and no brains. He doesn't think before speaking, and he's getting tired of this. Anthony shook his head at Bringer's stupidity and disappeared from original position and appeared beside Vivian, who was now walking in front of everyone. "You know, if you killed him, you would be killed right. I won't be able to protect you from the Academy or the Titan clan," Anthony said as he looked at Vivian. "Sigh. I know, but the fact he said, 'I am working together with the people that killed my parents,' just made me snap," Vivian replied. "I understand your dilemma, Vivian. I too would go to the ends of the world for revenge if someone killed my parents. But if you keep getting triggered every time something like this or something similar happens, it would become a real weakness. You would become easily manipulated too and fall into traps that you could easily see even in your sleep," Anthony said. "Are you saying I should let go my hatred for them after all they have done?" Vivian asked. "I am not saying you should let go the hatred. All I am saying is use that hatred as motivation to move forward, but also keep that hatred in check at the same time. Hatred is like an abyss, Vivian. The more you stare at it, the more you get corrupted. It is something I can't save you from, as I can't save you from yourself. Even if I save you, you will end up as an emotionless puppet," Anthony replied. "I understand. Thank you for your words, Anthony," Vivian said with a smile as her mood suddenly had a 180 turn. Anthony noticed her change in emotions and replied, "You are welcome." Spectre walked up to Bringer and said, "You should really think before you talk, man. If you were outside the Academy, I am sure she would have killed you already and destroyed your body. And besides, if we were really working with the demons, you won't live to see another day after what you just said. I would personally kill you when you take a mission. All in all, keep your mouth shut, as you don't know who your friend or enemy is." Bringer felt a chill down his spine as Spectre said that. "Don't worry. I will instill some common sense into his empty skull later," Ryder said as he slapped Bringer's head again. slapping Bringer's head when he says something stupid is Ryder's hobby. Please leave it to him, as he really likes it. Clement, as usual, didn't speak. He only looked at the Storm brothers for a while, then turned into smoke and disappeared and arrived beside Anthony. The rest followed his direction and disappeared and arrived behind Anthony as they continued walking to the weapon class. Ryder dragged his brother Bringer as they ran to catch up to Anthony and the rest, so they could continue their journey together even though the mood has been destroyed by his stupid brother. Anthony and the rest of the crew walked into the area where the class was being held. They pushed the door and entered with confidence befitting of the top 20. People spoke and whispered as they walked into the class. Are those the new top 20? I have to say they're all too beautiful and too handsome. Shouldn't they be actors and actresses or something? What is the king of human actually even doing here? He was given a pass 6 months ago, wasn't he? With such handsome face, who cares what he is doing here? Beside, we get to see 7 more handsome men. Damn, I just can't take my eyes off the girl with the golden eyes and hair. She's like an angel. Since I saw her, I couldn't put anyone else in my eyes. Well, you should know that angels don't date people of lower species. There goes your luck. They all walked and arrived at a particular spot, and all leaned against the wall. Your charisma really is off the charts today, Ross said. All you have to do is just blink, and they will eat you alive. Marcus followed up. All right. Enough of the jokes, please. It's not my fault the Null family is just this good. Bear with it. Anthony replied with a smirk on his face. On another side, a child from one of the 5 families of the human domain present in the academy. Well, since Hillary of the Amos family died, was staring at Anthony and his group that just arrived. His name is Conrad Lionheart. Before he was ranked 7th, but now he has fallen to the 20th. He was now barely and was sitting at the bottom of the top 20. This was a ridiculous change to him. He has always been confident in himself, as one of few humans to even step into the top 10 that humans don't dare dream. His parents were always proud about this, as they too know the top 10 was no small feat, and ranked 7th at that was even more dazzling. Even during the 1-month break, he didn't let up at all and just kept training and training. During the written exam ranking, he was ranked 13th, still showing his hard work. But it all crashed the day of the battle ranking. 10 new people suddenly appeared and wiped out his hard work. He went from being in the top 10 to actually being ranked at the bottom of the top 20. Many would trade whatever they had to be at Conrad's place right now. But geniuses don't have the mentality of losers. If they aren't the best, they won't be satisfied. But in this case, Conrad was satisfied with his 7th position, as he wasn't delusional. He saw how other people introduced themselves during the first class of today, and they all joined Anthony on his seat row. He wanted to introduce himself, but the pride and arrogance of being one of the top families of the human domain won't allow such nonsense. It would look like he was following Anthony's lead and became his lackey, so he just stared from afar. As everyone were busy discussing and talking about random stuff, an aura heavier than anything they have ever felt descended upon everyone and everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Everyone was slammed to the ground, unable to resist, as they were no different than ants. Even Anthony and his friends weren't an exception. Everyone was kissing the ground. It seems all lessons I gave you all suddenly turned to ash, huh? How many times do I have to tell you? No matter where you are, be it in your dreams, always have your guards up. Klaus' voice boomed in space as it twisted, and he stepped out while standing on air. Should I begin the entire class from beginning, or what? You all are called the Golden Generation, but to me you are just a little bit better than the rest of the previous generations. Should I just kill you all and get this done with? Maybe the next Golden Generation would take my words more seriously by the time they read your deaths in history records. Anthony and everyone felt a chill down their spine. Their instincts were literally screaming death at them, and they all started losing consciousness slowly, and one after the other. This is the first time Anthony has felt death in this world. The only time he was ever this close was when he died in his first life. But that was child's play compared to this. His body screamed, his soul roared to move, his mind buzzed to at least make an attempt or die a worthless death again while being held in place like the first time where his legs were frozen in place, couldn't move. Anthony suddenly disappeared from the ground where he laid and appeared in front of Klaus with his katana on his both hands. As he released his technique, while simultaneously increasing time for himself, in order to increase his speed, so he could at least catch Klaus off guard if possible. Endless technique, katana series, existential nihility. Anthony swung his sword at full strength, without any thoughts of limiting himself like he usually does. As he was really on death's door this time around, he showed his strength as a master ranker for the first time in the academy. As Anthony swung his sword, there was resounding silence, but total darkness, before everything was literally sent to oblivion. Boom! Windows came down and melted. Bricks were brought down and disappeared into nothingness like they never existed in the first place to begin with. Space destroyed itself, twisted, repaired, but broke down again and again, as if defying the order of nihility that was already established. Everything shook at the sheer magnitudes of destruction caused right now. Smoke filled everywhere from the ridiculous shock waves and air pressure, but suspiciously the destruction never went beyond the scope of the training classroom. The smoke and fumes cleared up, and Klaus, the sole person meant to receive the attack, hadn't even moved as much as a finger or even blink. He was standing in place in space at his original position, like the attack Anthony just dished out wasn't meant for him. He only had a smile on his face as he just stared at Anthony with his arms crossed. Anthony was too shocked to speak. Before he could even speak, he lost consciousness and dropped from the sky. As he was about to collide with the floor, a portal opened under him as Anthony just went through it and the portal closed. Klaus looked at the rest of the students who weren't affected by the aftermath as he placed a barrier over each of them as they fell unconscious before the attack. He shook his head again as, without even moving yet again, the same portal opened underneath each of them, and they all disappeared. As for where they all went, Klaus sent them to the infirmary to get treatment, even if he didn't injure any of them physically, but he still sent them there. Klaus looked at the destruction caused by Anthony and smirked. Time seemed to suddenly come to a halt, and everything began to revert back to its original state before Anthony's display of power. After fixing everything, Klaus removed the barrier he created that stopped Anthony's attack from going beyond the training classroom. Then he disappeared with a smile on his face like he was never there. In a large room filled with different beds and people pacing around, many students could be seen lying around on the beds present in the room. The people pacing around were healers who were responsible for healing students of the academy, and this is the first time they have received such amount of student at once. This huge room was the infirmary, a place where students are healed for free if the injury is connected to a professor. But if it's a personal injury that was gotten during a mission or something similar, it would be paid for in points according to the degree of the said injury. But of course people use potions to heal themselves, so people rarely come here. They didn't know what happened to have such amount of students dropped off at once, but the person who gave the orders to heal them wasn't one to be played with, so the healing team moved quick on their feet. After a round of healing, they were done and left since the students would wake up soon. Although there weren't any physical injuries on the students, that didn't mean they didn't cast physical healing magic on them. They also cast mind and soul's calming spells on the students in order to calm them down. 2 minutes later, one of them opened his eyes. As you have guessed, it is Anthony. Unlike the feeling of happiness and grogginess Anthony usually felt when he woke up in the morning from his slumber, this one felt different as his body felt heavy. Anthony tried sitting up. Immediately he woke up and sat up straight. The feeling of tiredness and heaviness he felt disappeared instantly as a result of his ridiculous regeneration. Anthony had literally spent everything on his full strength on that attack he unleashed against Klaus, which is why his body felt tired and heavy a second ago. Anthony sighed as he remembered how Klaus tanked his attack without even moving, like it was all a child's play to him. Anthony was usually the one in the position Klaus was in now, feeling high and might as no attack would reach him, but now he was in an infirmary bed. This didn't look good to him. It seems I unleashed my full attack when I sensed death again. I even used the time element while unleashing that attack. It seems the cat is out of the bag about me, being in a very high rank compared to other Anthony's side as he fell into his thoughts. Since Anthony was already fine, he got down from the bed in order to leave the room, but he was stopped by one of the staff here. Is there a reason I can't leave here? If this is about paying the points for healing me, how much is it? Anthony said to the man sitting on a table as he flipped a file in his hands. "This isn't about the points. The points would be handled by the academy, as the injury involved a professor here," the man replied. "Then what is this about?" Anthony asked again, feeling like he should just teleport out of here instead of walking to the door. "The weapon master has stated that no student is allowed to leave until he says so," the man said as he still didn't raise his head. Anthony frowned and wondered what Klaus was thinking, but he knew he couldn't understand that man, so he just shook his head and returned back to the bed and took out his phone to play a game as he passed time here. After some time, everyone started waking up one by one from their unconscious state. "Ark, what happened? My body feels sore. Can you people just keep quiet? We literally almost just died. How can Mr. Klaus unleash such aura on us? We are still too weak for this." They all remembered they were just in front of the Grim Reaper's door a moment ago, and now they were here. They didn't even know how they got here. This was a world where death was more likely to be higher in count than all the leaves in the world combined. So even though they just came back from standing in front of the Grim Reaper's mansion, they weren't too concerned about it. Although almost everyone feared death, nobody cried about being on death's door here if they survived in the end, as it was just another Monday morning to them. But of course, there are those who fall into trauma or something similar for 1 or 2 days, some a week, and they come out of it immediately and continue their lives. This is where the mind-calming and soul-calming spells come in, preventing these traumas or anything related before it even happens, or even after it happens. Anthony looked around as they all woke up, trying to see if anyone would look at him or say something after the attack from earlier. Surprisingly, nobody said anything about it, as they just talked amongst themselves as the healers did one last round of checkups on them before allowing them to rest and be back on full energy. Anthony squinted his eyes as no one looked at him. Did they all fall unconscious before the attack, or did Klaus somehow erase their memory or something related to it? Why am I even thinking about this when I can get the answer myself, Anthony thought. He activated all-seeing eyes and looked at every single one of the students present here. He scanned their memories and everything, and it seemed nobody witnessed the attack. He sighed in relief. The only thing now is what Klaus would do about this. Has he informed the dean? What does he plan to do with the information? Anthony fell into thoughts again. Anthony then remembered how he once thought that maybe just his sword skills path has caught up with Klaus, but he killed the idea immediately. It seems killing that idea was the right move at the time, as he was just nothing but arrogant that day. So, it is good I killed any arrogant thoughts I had. I can't become arrogant. I still have a long way to go right now, but I have time to catch up with Klaus and ask him for his secrets. But what if he captures me instead right now and asks me for my secret? Anthony looked up and said in his mind, "Protect me, oh great being. Your son is about to captured and striped of his powers." Ding. Says he has no son. Anthony nearly vomited blood from the response he got, although he wasn't expecting any response from the being, as he was just playing. How can he deny me like this? Anthony shook his head and just gave up on the matter. As everyone was either sitting on the bed or lying down and discussing with each other, as they all had basically recovered completely, a portal opened underneath everyone and dragged them into it. Everyone was shocked, but yet they all fell into it. Anthony, his subordinate, Brian, Tiara were the only ones who reacted immediately and tried to stabilize themselves without falling. Tiara was already used to this. Due to this is how her master, the vice president, always brought her to the training ground, so she was always on guard about it. But today wasn't her master's training day, so she resisted. Anthony won't fall for such things since he is always on guard. Although he and Tiara both possessed the space element, none of them even felt the space around them bend. This shows how much ridiculous control whoever opened the portal had. As for Anthony's subordinate, Anthony already used this trick once on them, so obviously they won't fall for a second time. Brian survived based on pure talent and battle instinct alone. But alas, it was all useless, even though none of them fell into the portal. That doesn't mean they survived it. Tendrils of darkness suddenly shot out of the portal with a greater speed than anyone's reaction time and wrapped around them and dragged them into the portal, and it closed up. The healers present in the room, as the students were taken away, didn't move or even bat an eye in their direction. They all behaved like nothing happened. At another location, hundreds of portals opened up and people dropped from the high up in the skies. Some landed on the feet, some landed on their faces, and some on their butt. Immediately, Anthony came out from his portal. He instantly stood on the air. Then he looked around. He saw other students also falling from the sky in different directions. He decided to get to the ground like the rest. Some controlled their element and landed with beautiful finesse. Anyone who didn't land on their feet here was just an idiot. Everyone looked around as they landed. Mountains and hills, so tall like they reached the clouds, stood tall and imposing and extremely beautiful. The mana here even seemed more vibrant than the Academy General Domain. Different water bodies could be seen everywhere with different fishes swimming around, with trees so tall and beautiful that gave off a serene feeling. Everyone was busy looking around. Even those from rich families were in awe of such environment, as this environment was just too beautiful, and they haven't seen such beauty even though they had been to many places. As everyone was still admiring the scene, Klaus's voice boomed, yet again from above. It seems even after warning you about dropping your guard, and punishing you maggots about dropping your guard, you still dropped it yet again and fell into an unknown portal. Indeed, killing you all is the only solution there is. Everyone was speechless. Klaus was literally threatening them with their lives. Wasn't he afraid of retaliation from the entire world? Well, although some of you resisted and didn't fall into the portal, so I commend you for that. 10,000 points to those that didn't fall into the portal immediately. Klaus spoke again as he looked at Brian and the rest. Others who fell into the portal felt like crying. 10,000 points wasn't a small number to them. It could be used to afford a lot of resources to help them. Suddenly, 4 bracelets appeared on everyone's limbs. These were weight bracelets which added weight to their body and also sealed off their mana. The bracelets on everyone varied of different weights, since everyone had different physique and strength, because even without mana you can't give the weight of a dragon to a human or an elf. Everyone felt their body suddenly become heavy, as they even need to assert a little bit of strength just to lift their hand up to their face. Those are weight bracelets. I'm sure you all already know what that is, so I won't explain. As punishment, you all are required to climb the mountains behind you, Klaus said. Everyone looked at the mountain Klaus pointed to and felt like they were just asked to die. Although with mana and their elements they could scale the mountain easily. It would just take a little bit of time, but asking to do that without mana or their element, and even with weights on, was just another level of cruelty in itself. Anthony looked at the mountain and the environment. He guessed they weren't in the academy anymore. Klaus had teleported everyone out of the academy domain. Get moving, you maggots. Don't make me talk twice. The last up the mountain would receive another punishment. Ha! Anthony, I am issuing a challenge like you said. If I get to the top of the mountain first, you will tell me your secret this time. I'm a titan. There's no way I would lose. I've been climbing mountains since I was 2. Ha! Bringer said as he laughed happily, seemingly finding something Anthony would lose at. Anthony smiled. Although he hasn't climbed a mountain before, he wasn't afraid he would lose to Bringer. Since you want to lose so bad, you are on, Anthony said with a smirk. Everyone immediately ran up the mountain and got climbing. Many moved at a snail pace, some moved with speed. Even though the weight brought down their strength, they can't suddenly fall to the level of the lowest of the lows. So even with the weights on, superior species showed why they are indeed called the superior species. Those with a physique showed why they possess such a physique in the first place. As everyone climbed, they complained and shouted as they moved. Many people injured as their flesh tore itself as they climbed up the mountain. Their fingertips' flesh tore apart and shined red. But they continued moving up the mountain even though they complained. But some didn't even have a single scratch on them, just like Brian. Just because his mana was sealed off and weight was put on him doesn't mean he suddenly lost his dragon physique. So things like stones on a mountain couldn't surpass his defense. People like Tiara, who were vampires, bleed from their injury. Although vampire possessed super strength, it doesn't mean they had a ridiculous physique, but their regeneration trait of their race healed their injuries. But of course Tiara, who is already an S ranker, can't be injured just because she climbed a mountain. But this wasn't a regular mountain. The more they climbed, the more people screamed, as even those who had a strong physique started getting injured. At a point, Tiara started getting injuries on her hand as her flesh broke apart, but were immediately healed up. She was shocked that she even got an injury in the first place. She looked up and saw her classmates who were up ahead, still hasn't even sustained an injury till now. But she can't blame herself for being a vampire. They didn't possess a ridiculous physique, but she didn't understand how the rest weren't injured. Anthony, his subordinate, Brian, Ryder, Bringer, were all at the forefront climbing the mountain. None of them have even sustained an injury yet as they climb without a sweat. Ryder looked at Donna, Vivian, and Evelyn and said in a questioning tone, "Aren't you mages? How come you're climbing this mountain with such speed and without an injury? Aren't you meant to be slow and be injured by now and struggling at the bottom of the mountain?" Evelyn said with a smirk, "When you win against Anthony, we would tell you." As they continued moving up the mountain, they started sweating slowly, although negligible, but making them sweat was already a big thing. As they climbed, Brian suddenly had an injury on his knee. He frowned but continued moving up the mountain. The more he climbed, the more injury he got on his palm and hands and legs. This seemed bizarre to him. The fact that just him climbing a mountain could make him injured was surprising. Although the dragons has a fast healing speed due to their bloodline and physique, it wasn't as ridiculous as the vampires. So Brian's injury didn't just close up like Tiara's. Besides, he even needed mana to stimulate this injury to increase the healing process, but his mana was sealed off. But still, Brian persisted. This wasn't just about building your physical strength. You could build your will as you continued climbing with injuries riddled on your body. Brian continued moving with steady speed without a change on his face. Although he rarely got injured in his life, it didn't mean he was afraid of injuries or couldn't endure one. They continued climbing and moving up the mountain with sweats rolling down their backs, but that didn't slow them down. By now, they already climbed up 70% of the mountain, but the Storm brothers weren't even injured yet. Same with Anthony and his subordinate. They didn't rush with speed, because the higher you moved, the trickier and more unsteady it got. So they were careful. At a point, blood flowed down Ryder's fingers, which made him frown. This was the first time he was getting an injury just from climbing a mountain. This has never happened since he could remember, and this seemed impossible to him. He possessed a Titan physique for a reason. This was simply unexpected. After a few minutes, Bringer also injured himself as he climbed. He already saw his brother getting injured, so he too was already expecting his own injury anytime soon. Sweat rolled down his face as he continued climbing without much issues. He looked at Anthony and the rest and asked, "How are you all injured yet? We are Titans, for God's sake, you are humans. You're meant to be injured by now." Bringer seriously wanted to know. Like Evel already said, you just have to win. No need to talk too much. We are wasting energy talking to you, Spectre said. Everyone just kept quiet. They needed their peak concentration for this, or they would take a misstep and fall off, making all their work for naught. After a while, they got to the top of the mountain while panting and sweating like they were pigs as they just climbed a ridiculous high mountain for 8 whole hours without rest. "Seems like I win, Bringer," Anthony said as he looked at Bringer with a smirk. You only got lucky this time. I would win next time," Bringer said. Anthony just shook his head and chose to forget about it. After a while, everyone made it to the top of the mountain exhausted. Then everyone was teleported back to the ground by Klaus. "You were given an hour of rest. Better make good use of the time. We would continue later." Klaus's voice sounded again as the weights on their limbs disappeared and the seal on their mana core was lifted. They all sighed in relief. They got 1 hour of rest. Some immediately channeled mana to their space rings to bring out healing potions and stamina potions to drink. Some didn't want to bring theirs out, as it was too expensive to spend on an injury that would be healed for free later in the infirmary. But no one knows what would happen after 1 hour of rest, so they wanted to take the healing and stamina potion. Anthony looked at Evelyn and said with a devilish smile through telepathy, "You know you can heal everyone here for free and make them save those potions." "Why would I do that? It's just a thankless task, though," Evelyn said as she looked at Anthony. "It is now, but later, instead of them heading to the healers to get healed and give them the points, you could heal them and collect lower academy points than the healers charge," Anthony said. Evelyn's eyes suddenly brightened as she felt enlightened. This was a good point. Academy points would flow in steadily. Although she already has a system shop where she could buy everything, that didn't mean she wouldn't want to save up her subordinate points to buy more expensive things. With healing students, she would get rich faster, Those things she would buy in the system shop, she would buy them in the academy with academy points, then buy harder ones from the system shop after saving up subordinate points. She immediately stood up and walked to where everyone was gathered and stood in front of them with a smile. Everyone looked at her wondering what she was going to say or do. "No need to waste your stamina and healing potions," Evelyn said as she raised her hands with a smile as she casted a healing spell. "Light magic, healing type, healing feathers." The skies above them immediately turned golden, as if in response to Evelyn's spell. Golden feathers fell from the skies as they floated down and landed on each student as it healed their injuries and restored their stamina, bringing them back to their peak body conditions within seconds. People were in awe of such display of skill. They looked at Evelyn like she was a goddess. Evelyn just smiled at them and turned around as she went back to the place she sat before. "She is like an angel, like I said before. Although I said angels don't marry those of lower species, I am sure this one will. Such compassionate heart. Is this what it feels like to be in love? Thank you very much, my goddess." Everyone thanked Evelyn, but she just flashed them a smile as a reply as she sat down. Then people brought out water and some food from their space rings, and they ate and relaxed as they fell into thoughts of what Klaus was going to do this time. Anthony just brought out a large parasol with a large round table and chairs as he, the Storm brothers, and his subordinates sat down together, and he placed some drinks and fruits on the table. They sipped their drinks as they continued, waiting for time to go by fast. The rest looked at them and shook their heads. Indeed, the top 20 were different. As everyone was resting, an hour quickly flew by, and they cursed at what was coming next. The weight bracelets reappeared on everyone's limbs as their mana was sealed yet again. Klaus' voice resounded within the area saying, "Your time is up. This time around, you would be running through this forest and get to that hill." Klaus pointed in a direction, and they all turned to see. "Be careful. Traps are laid along the way. You might lose a limb or two. So expect the unexpected as you run," Klaus said again, as he clapped his hands once, and everyone disappeared and appeared at their various starting points asides one person. Klaus then looked at the person who remained, as he deliberately didn't teleport him at all, and I didn't put the weight bracelets on him too. It was Anthony, the first ranker. Klaus said to him from the mountain he was sitting on, "Why are you still standing there looking at me? Come up already." Anthony didn't know what Klaus was thinking and just disappeared from where he stood and appeared beside Klaus. Anthony brought out a chair and sat on it as he looked at his classmates run through the forest as they made their way to the hill. They both didn't speak and just sat there, and 2 hours went by. They just kept observing others without a word. Anthony sighed. He knew he can't play the waiting game with Klaus. All these old men were literally too old to not be patient. He knew he had to say something first, or Klaus might just sit there like he doesn't exist. "Sigh, why are you keeping me here, Klaus?" "Oh, so you give up on the waiting game," Klaus replied. "You old men are way too patient. I am still too young and full of life to be that patient," Anthony said. Klaus knew what Anthony was trying to say about being young and full of life, but he didn't reply. He just smiled and said, You amaze me a lot, and it takes quite a lot of things to amaze me even a little. I'm sorry. I'm not an amend, please," Anthony said with his mouth twitching. Klaus knocked Anthony on the head and said, That's not what I mean. Stop trying to change the topic." Klaus then continued his talk as he looked at the other students. "Being at the master rank at age 15 is a record, I wonder how you flew through the ranks," Klaus said with an amusing tone. "I guess I'm the most talented in the world," Anthony said without even blinking. "Oh, that you are. Even when I was your age, I was still at peak of the mortal rank. But here you are shattering my record. I thought I was already the most talented, but it seems there are still monsters to be born. I possess special eyes like you and that child Kevin, and I would say my own eyes see through a lot of things. There is only one thing I still haven't seen through till today, and it doesn't bother me, though. But you and your friends are things my eyes can't seem to see through, which makes you even more interesting," Klaus said. "Are you trying to ask for what I'm hiding in a roundabout way?" Anthony said with a straight face as he looked at Klaus. "I have no need for your secrets. If I wanted them, there are ways to know. There are abilities to get answers," Klaus replied. "Are you talking about diviners and their abilities?" Anthony asked. "Don't count me in with those clown tricks," Klaus replied in a stern tone. "So you didn't call me here for my secrets?" Anthony asked in a surprised tone. Klaus simply shook his head as he didn't really care what secret Anthony has. "So, you aren't going to tell the dean?" "I don't work for the dean." "I mean, you literally do. You're teaching us right now, and you still have over a year remaining here. Like I said during the first class, I simply owe him a favor," Klaus said. "What if the academy pressures you then? From what I've heard, you don't belong to any organization or have anyone backing you, or even a guild that work for you," Anthony asked. "Only weaklings gather together to form a fence to protect themselves. I have no need for such things. As for your questions about the academy pressuring me, they won't dare to. Even if they dare, I just have to erase their existence. And the problem is solved," Klaus said with a straight face. "I pursue the ultimate path, the path of strength that defeats everything. I have no need to scheme or think of any trap that my enemies might lay, or be cautious. I walk into whatever they prepare unaware and come out alive while they are dead. A lot of people hate me, boy, but do you know why I'm still standing here talking to you? Strength. If I wasn't strong enough, I would have been dead 10 times over already." Anthony was speechless about what he heard. Although he pursued the same thing, a path of ultimate strength, but he hasn't even taken a step there yet. Hearing it from someone who is already on that path gives a different feeling. Klaus literally said if the academy actually dares, he would wipe them out of existence with his own power alone. One has to imagine the kind of existence the academy is, ruled by the Slaughter and the Blood Empress, the professor there, the connections they have that they could call in, the people that hate Klaus they could call in, students that already graduated that they could call in. It wasn't wrong to say the academy possessed connection in every single domain, even in the demon domain. Yet Klaus, who sat beside Anthony right now, said he could wipe them off the map no matter what army they assembled. Uttering such words was strength in itself. Then Anthony suddenly had a thought and asked Klaus, "If you were so powerful then, how did you owe the dean a favor?" Klaus smiled and said, "It's not a big reason like you expect, boy. It's just a stupid thing. There was an artifact I needed, and only the Slaughterer had it at the time. Why didn't you just beat him up and collect it? Just because I have power doesn't mean I should go on a rampage, boy. By your statement, I should just enter an auction house and take everything and come out. That is tyranny. Although I purse ultimate strength, not a path destruction." Anthony nodded his head as he understood what Klaus meant. Although he could cross lines, doesn't mean he should cross them. If you cross one, what's stopping you from crossing two and more? And before you know it, you are no different than a demon. "How about you become my disciple?" Klaus offered with a smile. Anthony became speechless. He didn't see this coming at all. "I know you use different weapons like me, so I can teach you about weapons and elements all the way to the peak." Anthony sighed as he looked up into the skies. The offer was really tempting, but he already had a stronger master. "I'm sorry, Klaus. I'm going to pursue my own path just like you did, and when we meet on this path, we are going to determine who possessed the ultimate strength." Ha 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 ha. I never thought there would be a day I would be rejected like this. This feeling is really refreshing. As you have issued a challenge, I would be waiting for you on this path. Once you deviate from it, I would kill you and everyone you love. Anthony was too stunned to speak. 1 minute he was asked to become a disciple, and now he was told he would be killed and his family would die too. "Well, if you don't die of old age before then," Anthony said with a laugh. In the infirmary, students could be seen grouching one after another as they just came back from their session with Klaus. Klaus gave instructions not to completely heal any student so that their body could heal naturally and grow stronger like that on its own. Those with minor injuries were ignored. But of course, those who don't want to wait for their body to heal on its own can just use the healing potion if they wanted to, but Klaus already advised against that also, but won't force anyone, as you can't really force anyone to be strong if they didn't want to. Besides, Klaus didn't really care. He just gave the advice and left it at that. Anthony and his friends could be seen walking out of infirmary without any injuries or bandages on their body. Well, only the Storm brothers were actually injured in the first place, which Evelyn healed just by waving her hand. Although Klaus advised against healing the injuries, the Storm brothers had too little injury on their body for it to make any difference due to their ridiculous physique. They only didn't replenish their stamina and just rested in the infirmary so they could improve. Well, Never thought I would get injured just by climbing a mountain. That's a first. Bringer said as he looked at his hand. Even though the injury already healed, he still couldn't get over it. The mere fact that a stone could bypass his defense made him think he didn't train enough and has been playing around too much. It just didn't sit right with him. Don't overthink it, brother. In case you have forgotten, that wasn't a normal mountain. Even the mana in the air was greater than the one in the academy. I'm sure you know the kind of person Professor Klaus is, Ryder said as he cheered up Bringer. Let's go to the cafeteria and eat. I'm starving like hell, Ross said. Bringer's eyes immediately brightened as he remembered the food he was supposed to eat, but he forgot due to the training session they just had. Bringer turned his head to Anthony and said with a smirk, "Hope you won't be going back on your promise, right? That would leave a stain on your reputation, you know." Anthony frowned as he heard this. He was tired of this stupid guy named Bringer. I can't get over the fact that the first person I'm buying food for since my reincarnation is a man with bulging muscles instead of a pretty girl like Vivian. I should have placed this food deal as wager during the bet when we climbed the mountain, Anthony thought as he looked at Bringer with disgust. Then they all made their way to the cafeteria. The cafeteria is divided into 4 floors. The higher you climb, the more expensive and rare the dish becomes, making it worth the price. From the 3rd floor to the 4th floor, only mana dishes are sold. Mana dishes are food that contain mana, which are prepared by people called mana chefs. People awaken this as their class. Although normal people who haven't awakened, usually under the age of 10, since every living soul can use mana in this world, can eat mana dishes, they can't eat many of it. They can only eat a little due to their body not having mana and not being able to withstand it. If they eat more they can handle, they would explode like a balloon. The same applies to other people, those who have awakened. Consuming more mana dishes than you could handle still leads to death by overfeeding. The clique arrived at the cafeteria and walked directly to the 4th floor. Normally they won't dare climb to the 4th floor, but today was a special day. Anthony was going to pay. They had to dry his coffers as much as possible. The more they climbed, the lesser people they saw on each floor. They even met students of the 2nd and 3rd year at the 2nd and 3rd floor, showing how rich they were. As they arrived at the 4th floor, they looked around. As it looked empty, they only saw the chefs who stood at the floor at all times, since anybody could come at any time. A waiter walked up to them and greeted them with a smile and led them to a table. Anthony looked at the waiter who stood at the master rank 5th level and couldn't help but admire the academy. Using a master ranker as a waiter was just too lavishing. They put together 3 tables, and the 13 of them sat together, and the waiter handed them a menu. As they went through the menu, they all sucked in cold air as they saw the outrageous prices. Even Bringer lost appetite as they saw the ridiculous price on the list. The cheapest thing here cost 10,000 points, and that was water. No wonder this place was empty. You just taking a cup of water here could make you go broke. "What the heck is the price?" Arnold said. "Is the water taken from the river of life? 10,000 points? Just to quench my thirst. I'm a water mage, the fuck is this?" Donis said. The waiter didn't bother replying. He has seen this reaction way too many times. Everyone who came here for the first time always complained, then left immediately, and came back when they were ready to spend or have enough points. Even he, the waiter, too, was stupefied when he started working here and saw the price for the first time. Anthony didn't know what to say. Many of the food he ate he bought from the system resources, so he didn't bother checking the price and just bought them. Now he actually had to pay for something with his hard-earned money, and it was too much. If Anthony didn't have millions of points, he would have gotten up from here and left. Well, it's not like I have anything I'm doing with these points, so it's better to go on a spree here then. Besides, when I need points, I could go to the arena and place a bet, and I would be rich again, Anthony thought. We could leave now if you want," Bringer said, as he too was poor to even drink water here, and not a talk of even eating. Anthony shook his head and said like a young master that of course he is. "There is no need. I'm too rich to be bothered by these cheap prices. You can have whatever you want on the menu. After all, I can't go back on my word. That's a stain on my name. You are free to die of overfeeding." Everyone was shocked that Anthony possessed such points to utter such words, but no one doubted him, so they immediately started ordering without delay. The waiter too frowned, as this was the first time he was seeing someone so lavishing. He had to work his whole life and other to gather points to improve his cultivation steadily. He had decided to work for the academy since he didn't like battles at all. although he could fight, but he just didn't like bloodshed. But that didn't make him naive of any sort. He too has his own fair share of bodies. Besides, what the Academy pays him was over 2 times what he would gain while fighting, while having protection, and also means of buying anything his money could without having to worry about robbery. The waiter served everyone as he controlled the wind element and carried everyone's food to their table without spilling anything. This shows years of experience he has on the job. Everyone immediately dived in, while feeling dazed once in a while as the food was too good and delicious in their tongues. To taste food of this level, you need mana crystals and other to eat, as high-level mana chefs didn't need ordinary money like quarks. Only low-level mana chefs need quarks, and they don't cook food compared to this level. Only Anthony wasn't lost in the taste, as the food from the system was even better than this. So to him it was just normal. The feast went on for 30 minutes before they were done. Bringer rubbed his belly as he literally stuffed himself with food and a lot of drinks. He even dared to order takeout, as he wasn't sure when next he would be here. Others also ordered takeout. Although they could do without food, it didn't matter to them. The food was too delicious to pass up. The waiter took the bill from the chef as they calculated everything Anthony and his crew had eaten. Even the chefs were stunned, as they never prepared this amount of food at one sitting in the Academy. The waiter was shocked when he saw the bill, but he didn't say anything and just gave it to Anthony with a smile befitting a professional. Anthony's lips twitched as he saw the bill. "Let me see," Vivian said as she took the paper from Anthony's hand, and her jaws dropped. She just gave back the bill to Anthony and told the rest how much it cost. It cost a total of 2.3 million points. They literally ate people's life savings here. Anthony opened his Academy wristwatch and paid immediately without a second thought. Others wondered where he got such amount of points from. Even changing the corpse from the realm during the battle ranking exam won't give such points. Anthony didn't explain anything to anyone. After paying the points, he looked at the waiter and transferred 300,000 points to him and then left without even waiting for a thank you. Anthony only transferred those points cause he had unconsciously read the memories of the waiter, who was an elf, and saw how long he has come. Anthony sort of saw himself from his first life in the elf, although it wasn't the same. He just transferred the points cause he was feeling nostalgic, and he had no need for the points. If he has a need for the point, best believe Anthony won't give out even a single point, as he was no saint nor was he compassionate.